Are you a brewhead? I'm a brewhead. Are you a brewhead? I'm a brewhead. Y'all are brewheads? Yeah, we brewheads. So pour a glass of craft beer, we can do this. Yeah.
What's good, y'all? This is C-Certified Brewhead, and welcome to episode 4 of the Business of Beer here on BAOS. Just me tonight, folks, but we got a banger. So if you guys have been following our YouTube at any point in time, our most watched video is a video about sales reps that we shot in Durango, Colorado back in, what do I want to say, like 2018. And it, to me, that's something that we hadn't really touched on much since that video. And I feel like beer sales reps are so integral to the craft beer industry. It's those are the people that, petition for their brewery's beer to get into stores, into, here in Ontario in the LCBO, independent stores, into, licensees, restaurants, bars, all that stuff. And their job is probably one of the, at least from what I've seen, one of the least talked about. So in the spirit of that episode, we have a fantastic guest tonight that we're going to really dig deep into that. And I'm super excited to learn a lot more about it. I personally don't know a shit ton, so I'm super excited. So folks, let me make sure I do this right. Please welcome, here we go. Do I have it right here? Wait, am I going to ruin it? Am I going to ruin it? Go and lay that. Micah of Lilypad in the building.
I love the
Oh, look. See how long that applause is? Can't shut him up.
Do it again. We
can do it again. We can do it. Oh, hang on. Wait. It's coming back. It's coming back. It's going to come back. There it is. That's the applause for Florida. Welcome, bro.
Oh, thanks, man. How are you?
Fantastic. How are you?
Great, man. I'm really excited to be here and excited to talk about kind of the day in life of a rep. Again, they kind of are like the unsung heroes,
Yes.
We talk about the brewer, we talk about the tap house, we talk about a lot of the other things, but there's also people out there pushing it, making sure that, hey, if you can't make it to the tap house, where can I get it? And that's really a heavy job, especially coming after COVID. I mean, everyone was kind of like, hey, bars and restaurants are closed. How do we get back into those things? So really excited to chat with you and kind of give that insight.
Absolutely. Likewise. Thank you so much for being here. And it's extra cool. I forgot to mention this in the intro, that the sort of full circle moment on that video that was, and I think I might have told you guys that the beer sales rep video we did on YouTube, that episode was sponsored by Lilypad because Scar Brewing were probably still are a client of you guys. So it was kind of great to reconnect with you both, you and Chris from Lilypad, and get now a full-length podcast so we can really dive deep. So I appreciate you both a lot, man. Thank you so much for hanging out. And you are coming to us live from Tampa, Florida. Is that correct?
Tampa, Florida, baby.
Let's go. People, if you listen or watch here, I'm a large fan of, is it the Sunshine State or is that California?
Yeah, Sunshine State. I've heard Gunshine State, the state of the Florida man. There's a lot going on. I mean, we're the Australia of the US, so kind of homage there.
I feel like that maybe that's why I feel so at home there. I love it. We're the same people, bro. We're the same people. Now, you have curated a phenomenal lineup of breweries, and I definitely haven't had the beers. I don't even know if I've had anything from these breweries. So personally, I'm super excited to dig into it. So tell us how we're starting off, bro.
So we're starting off with a BarrieHaus.
Yes.
This is really cool because, as you can see on the can right there, they won gold in the beer cup for Bohemian Pilsner. And what's really cool about these guys is they're just a little tiny brewery in the middle of somewhere called Ybor City, which is like South Tampa kind of area. And you never know what you're going to get, when you walk into these breweries nowadays, and the attention to detail, and they're just doing it. They're doing it right. They're just doing it right.
I've heard so much. I don't think I've had much from Tampa, and I've heard that Tampa's like the city for Florida beer. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I would say, not to hate on, again, like what Miami's doing, and there's so many just cities everywhere in Florida that are making phenomenal beer. But the Tampa Bay area, has some very notable brewers, owners, sales reps. Like there's a personality that really comes out of Tampa when you start looking at the beer scene. So but it was really cool. We were at the we were actually here at the World Cup beer awards, and I remember Chris, who's actually on this call, shout out to Chris
Big
marketing,
ups, Chris.
snapped a picture as soon as he saw it and posted it, and then BarrieHaus came in right behind and was like, oh my gosh, we won gold, because they didn't even know at that time, because it was such real-time updates that we got a reshare out of it, which is really sick. So
That's awesome.
yeah,
So you were
very
there
cool.
when they won this specific thing.
Yeah,
That's
which is
so
really
dope.
cool, because again, like, I'm a skateboarder, and Ybor is kind of a staple. And growing up in your early 20s, it's a lot of clubs and venues and things like that. So we used to go there, all the time. It's open till 2, 3 a.m. And now there's breweries down there. And now there's like a lot of culture, and it's just really, really cool.
Hell yeah, brother. First and foremost, cheers. Welcome again. Appreciate you
Cheers.
being on.
Clink.
Oh, nose is great.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you can see why it's just
It's money.
crispy boys.
So clean. So this is a 4.5% Czech-style Pils.
Yep.
Now it says it's got is that Moravian malt and Saaz hops from Czechia, which is amazing. And it's so are these guys, are BarrieHaus known a lot for their crispies?
Yeah.
Is that really their vibe?
Yeah.
Because
That's really cool. They're doing like a promo right now with like slow pour. So people are finally understanding like what slow pour is, and again, like the head and the foam, and how it really can change the way you drink the beer. So it's really cool that they're really focusing on. But kind of like you just rattled off, like some of those ingredients. I mean, we're not skimping on those
Crazy.
ingredients.
No.
The attention to detail is just phenomenal, and you get it all over in the nose and the taste buds.
It's just really, you can tell that it's like serious. Like these guys are serious about the crispies, and there's all on the description, both on the can, and I'm just checking here on tap, that says best experienced in Tübinger tankards from Czech side pool faucets. So I'm like, these guys are serious, bro.
But if you ever met them, like, you're greeted with a smile. Like, you would have no idea, like there's that level of it, because there's just so much love that comes out of it. So really good people over there.
Amazing. I love it. And the reason you selected this one, I guess, are clients of Lilypad as well. They just do exceptional crispy boys.
Yeah, not a client. I don't.
No, okay.
No, and they don't really do a lot of distro. It's like super. Just I think they're doing a little bit of distro. If they are, it's pretty new. But that's what makes them so cool. Is they're pretty young in the space, in the scene, and they're just kicking butt and taking names. So.
Yeah. Just some even quick. I love to hear that, bro. That's even cooler that you chose them and they're not clients. It's so sick. The tasting notes here. I mean, like, it's super bready. I'm getting that sort of grassy bitterness as well, which is very on point for a Czech Pils. It's got a nice sweetness. I feel like it's like, that's my palate. This is my first beer of the night, so I don't know if I'm a little off, but it's got a great sweetness to it, which I'm really enjoying. Anything that you're specifically getting out of this?
No, I think you've nailed it on the head. I am no Cicerone aficionado by any means. But again, like, I think it goes into the quality of the ingredients.
Yeah, this is great. I'm just taking quick tasting notes as we're just going through it. But
just clean.
Yeah, man, this is fantastic. Super clean. Clean is the key word here.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, it's starting to break up a touch, but is it the old bit of Florida rain? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I just yeah.
We good? Okay. I can tell your screen went a little blurry just now, but usually when it does that, it should kick back in. I
think we're good.
Think we're good? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can
hear you good. Okay, cool. The screen's a little blurry.
Okay, cool. Yeah. I don't know if it was on my end or yours, so I apologize.
No, it's who even knows with these things. Sometimes the internet, it's part and parcel of these virtual podcasts, I guess. People are used to it.
The digital age.
The digital age, brother. So with that, this is a fantastic start. So let's just start from the beginning here. So maybe just to set the scene, do you want to just give people just a brief, bio, like your specific history in beer, and also what Lilypad is, just for people to know, because we're going to be talking about all things sales rep, but this is it's going to be a solid tech component of it.
Yeah, definitely. So, yeah, Mike Overton, currently with Lilypad, which is a CRM that specializes in the alcohol beverage space. But before that, I did about 2 years as an actual rep in the field for a local brewery. And that's where this all kind of stemmed from is like, I'm so passionate about, again, what I would call the unsung heroes of really the whole process of like getting the beer. Like, yes, the brewery process is super important. Like, everyone is pivotal. It's like a football team. Like, yes, we have an all-star quarterback, but I need people to catch the ball and I need people to block so I don't get hit, so I can throw the ball. Like, there's so many players that really go into the beer world, but just those 2 years alone, and again, just the continuous 5 years that I've been with LilyPad, so really 7 to 8 years in the space and seeing it grow. Um, yeah, there's just so many insights that I think people don't realize. Like, you bump into your local rep and you have no idea like what their day was like, what all the weird and awkward things that we have to go through, and what it takes to really get the beer on the shelf. It's not like you walk in and it's so good that people bring it on. I mean, that was something in the past because people had,
Right.
we had places to put beer. Now the shelves are so crowded. It's like, it's not just the quality of the beer, it's the sales rep and the relationships they're building. So
Mm,
really excited to like talk about that and really dive into to all that.
amazing. Thank you for that, bro. So since you mentioned it, it's a perfect kickoff. Tell us about, just let's paint the picture so that people can get a bit more of a concept before we maybe get a bit granular here. What would be just a typical high level day in the life of a craft beer sales rep look like? Like, what would that look like?
Yeah, I mean, it really starts, you wake up around 1 or 2 in the afternoon. No, I'm just kidding. No,
I
it's
kind
like
of do.
any normal job. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it would be nice. And that's funny because when I first, I left the automotive industry originally, and then came into beer. And so I was already used to waking up and doing that, like, wake up at 6, get ready 7, you're working by 8, and you work that like kind of 8 to 5, 9 to 5 job. And then with beer, I was like, oh, this is going to be a little bit different. But it was almost the opposite. So typically you're waking up normal, you're getting your day ready. If you're using something like a lily pad or you have your notepad or your calendar or whatever, you're kind of understanding where you want to go and why. Some
Mm.
people, actually, the more smaller local, maybe you're starting at the brewery. Hey, being at the brewery by 8, come hang out, grab some samples for the day. Let's talk. Let's do a meeting. Of course, as it gets bigger, you become more remote and you're just kind of waking up and doing your thing. But the
Mm.
expectation is just to get out there and really call on accounts and build relationships. But that doesn't end at 5 because, as you know, some restaurants and bars don't even open till 4 or 5.
That's true.
So as I'm getting on the off premise, which again are going to be, places like grocery stores and your liquor stores, those are off premise kind of accounts. They like to see you at 8, 9, 10, 11, because they do leave normally at 5, and then they have their backup staff will come in behind them. Whereas bars and restaurants are then opening when those people are leaving, and now I have to go hit them. And so really you're working these 10, 12-hour days just to make sure you can get in front of the right audience to leverage the sale and get the beer on tap or in cans.
I never thought about that, about the times. And then the second thing was you mentioned that, like, it seems to be a very like self-directed job. Like, you don't would it be fair to say that most sales rep jobs are just like you do your thing, your territory, or is there often like a manager being like, all right, today, Micah, I need you to go here these 20 places? Like, how does that work?
I think it depends on the structure. Again, I think if you're a little bit smaller and you're like a staple in that community, you already know who your top clients are. You know where you want to branch into like new communities or new areas. Again, Tampa is a great example of that. Like, we have Seminole Heights now. There's a lot of culture and restaurants that are popping up in certain areas. It's like, okay, well, those are now areas that we need to go after because they are craft centric. The
Hmm,
restaurants are using artisan ingredients and artisan things. Now they need to complement it with an artisan beer and not, one of the big 2 or 3, like,
gotcha.
great. So I think there's a little bit of that, but it is very much, that was a big culture shock to me, was like, all right, go sell.
You're
And you're
like,
like, well, hold on, what, like, yeah, I know there's thousands of accounts in my backyard, but like, where, okay, let me start using tech, let me start using LilyPad, let me start dropping filters, let me start Googling stuff. I mean, I can't tell you how
hmm,
many times I'm in Google just seeing if the store hours are open. Um,
okay.
so it is a very much like, hey, the first maybe month of hire, you might get some hand holding, but after that, it's like, Start building
Sure.
relationships, start planning out your days as you kind of get in and out of those accounts, and wake up every day and do it until 8, 9 and at night sometimes.
Okay, this is fascinating. I hadn't thought about this even in like all of our prep. This is like hectic. Okay, so how would a typical sales rep without the hand holding? So if you're a sales rep, it's Monday morning, you wake up, like how do you decide where to go and what to do? Do you pre-plan meetings? Like do you email ahead or call ahead to book a meeting, or do you just like rock up?
A lot of the calls that reps, and again, these aren't like key account managers. Like someone that's a key account manager, they're probably behind a desk. They're emailing, national chains. Hey, I'm reaching out to Publix corporate. I'm reaching out to these things.
Sure.
Whereas more of like that boots on the ground rep, it's basically kind of what you said. Like we're just kind of getting up and going, but we're using the word tech a lot, but we're using tech to kind of say like again something like Lilypad. Hey, I want to see, buying accounts near me over the last 60 days or people that haven't bought over the last 30 days. Great. Now we have data that's coming in that's saying, hey, here's a list of accounts that we should probably go after because we're not
Hmm.
visiting them or they just purchased or, things like that. But you have to think of the other side where, hey, we don't have tech. Then it literally is, hey, restaurants near me in Google. And
Okay,
it's
let's
just seeing that on a map.
okay. I just want to keep drilling down into this if you don't mind. Like this
Yeah.
is fascinating to me. So let's do two sides, one with tech, one without tech. Let's start
Yeah.
without tech. So if I'm a sales rep and I'm in Tampa and I'm like I pick a neighborhood, is that where
Mhm.
you would start? You'd be like, all right, I'm gonna go to this neighborhood and say there's like a main commercial street that has 10 bars, 10 restaurants, 10 stores.
Exactly.
So do you just hop between them? Or like say without once again without tech, like do you just randomly hop in, or if you like or if you know you've been there, you don't want to hassle them, or do you just pop in to say hi and don't sell and just to
You
chat?
just
Like
pop in.
you
And
just
and
pop in.
that's like one of the things I wanted to talk about probably a little later, but it's like the
Okay.
awkwardness because everything you're doing is like almost it's like door to door sales for solar.
That's okay.
Like
Yeah.
you're just knocking on a door and you don't, at least in someone's home, like they're usually pretty civil, but like you're in someone's bar or restaurant and we know there could be bad habits associated and people are quirky, and they all have their own little shtick on how you talk to them or approach them. Like you can walk in and
Mm.
just ruin a relationship just by like not opening the door right. The door slams behind you and there's a little sign under the handle that says don't let door slam, and now you're the bad guy. And it's just and that's a true, like that's a real that's real,
You
that's
gotta
happened
work
to
your
me.
way back. No
And
shit.
then now you're building the relationship on the wrong foot.
Mm.
So it is very much just like, hey, for example, in Tampa, we have an area called Wesley Chapel, and it's blowing up. It's got like two kind of outdoor malls and outlet malls. It's got tons of restaurants, but again, okay, hey, here's a bunch of new stuff. Let's just poke our head in and see what we can do. Most people, again, are normally familiar with local brands. We try to make sure we're talking to like a bartender or someone that understands the space and what the liquid that they're bringing in is. Does it cater the menu? Does it, does your demographic even like juicy hazy double IPAs? No, then why would you put it on and not watch it blow? So it's really weird. You have to do a lot of hand holding and guiding, but again, people just open up restaurants sometimes because they have a passion for food, but they really don't understand the beer side of the food. Because I do
Mm.
think it all kind of coexists.
Okay. All right. I'm going to drill down a little more. Say if you, because I feel like there's different questions for different businesses. So say it's a
Yeah.
restaurant
hmm
and you pull up to the restaurant. Do you have to speak to it? Like, is it a waste of your time to speak to like someone who doesn't have any authority to buy?
I've heard people say yes, and I strongly disagree. When
Okay.
I was selling, like I wanted to know who the busser was because that's a person that can still impact a sale of my beer. That
Mm,
person's still going to touch a customer in some sort of way.
mm,
And again, it's like knowing the servers. Like, cool, the kitchen manager brought us in, great. But maybe I need to come up behind that placement and say, hey, now let's do a staff training because I want your staff talking about it. And I want you guys to know that, hey, I came in here and had the red snapper, and that's going to pair really good with this, mango IPA. Great.
mm.
And now we're helping them because also it's helping the reps, or I'm sorry, the servers add more to the bill so they get more of a tip. You talking about
Everyone
seven,
wins.
$8, $9 pours.
Mm.
You do two of them, that's $18. you keep multiplying that by the people sitting at the table. I mean, you can add $50 in just liquid,
Easy.
and that's going to help your you take home more money. So
Hmm.
I think it's like knowing everybody. Like I would walk into, again, like off premise accounts, and like, who's the stock boy? Because how many times have you been in a place where you're like, hey man, you got any recommendations? Hey, can you help me find this?
Gotcha.
Oh yeah, that's good beer, but the rep from this place was just in here and they
He's
got that. Boom, that's a
right.
grab. That's a sale.
Dude, that is fascinating. That is that's genius. I could imagine that's exactly what any owner of a, say, because since we're talking restaurant, would want. So then
But it
you
starts
would,
with the hostess.
okay, so you'd
You
walk in
walk in awkwardly.
awkwardly. Hey, I'm
Here's
from
my
here.
card.
Can I talk to whoever? So like it's like
That's
you
exactly what it is. Hey, can I talk to the beer buyer? Hey, can
the
I talk
beer
to
buyer.
the GM? Can I
Gotcha.
throw a title and hope you get something? It's
Okay.
darts.
Gotcha. And then you'll start to learn over time what
Hmm.
that place is. And then you have, if you're in there, then maybe you'll just shoot the shit with the hostess, or the server or the busser or the bartender or somebody just because you're there.
Whoever gives you the time.
And say, okay, and then say if the GM or beer buyer isn't there, is it wise to go to the bartender? But hey, bartender, like here's 3 cans of this for your team to sample, or is that a risk because they might just drink it and take it home and then not talk about it?
That's that's great, man. I think had to
You
burp.
good? No, you
Um,
good. But away, people are used to it.
um, yeah, that's a really really good point. I have actually had personal experiences where I loved giving out samples. Like I loved giving out samples, and I never thought anything of it other than, hey, I can convert this person to enjoy this beer and go grab it, whether they're at their local bar or again they're at their local grocery store. They're gonna remember they sampled this and they had this,
Mm,
and they're gonna go get it. What I realize is, again, when we talk about alcohol, like it is a substance, and that substance can be abused, and you don't think about that when you don't battle those things.
gotcha.
So I mean, there's been plenty of times like I've walked into bars and like I've left samples with the bartenders, and then I finally meet the beer buyer, or I've already met them and we're already friends, but then now I'm having a conversation about, yeah man, you can't leave like 9% beers with, like, we had winter warmers that were 11%, 9%, and it's like, I mean, you can drink one or two on an empty stomach and be trashed.
Totally.
It's kind of a game set match, and that's someone's employee that I'm giving beer to, and
Mm.
assuming that they're gonna take it home and taste it, and then hit
Or
me up,
split it. I would assume
or split it
they'd
with the
split it with the
staff,
staff.
or yeah, or
Let's say
whatever. But
before the shift, like, hey guys, here's 2 ounces or 3 ounces each.
now we would do that if they brought it in. Hey, try
Right.
it, sample it, know what you're giving to your
So,
tables. That way you can recommend it. But me
huh,
just walking in there as a rep, and
and
again, it's usually
leaving
like
it.
a hostess and a busboy opening up the restaurant, and then the opening bartender cutting oranges, like
You
prep
gotta have
work.
time and
Yeah, and hey, here's some samples. Oh man, I'll take this to my car when I smoke a cigarette, and then,
gotcha.
hey, why are you so loopy today? There's a can on the ground, and then it all starts adding
Mm.
up that, and again, is it
Hmm.
my fault? No. But could you do better with, hey, this is the right person to give the beer to? I think absolutely. But again, it was something that was later in my rep life that I really had no conscious understanding of,
Hmm.
because I was just like, hey, we got samples, and I want to make, plant a seed. I want you to be a
Yeah.
believer of the brand and go buy it. So if I give you a free one, cool. Um, yeah, backfire
Hmm.
sometimes.
Yeah, that's kind of surprising to me. I would have just thought that as like and maybe I'm expecting too much of humans, but as a, intelligent, responsible adult who's working behind a bar, how about you don't drink the 11% during the shift? And the point is that the rep dropped it off so you all could share it and learn about it and see if it's worth, you know,
Or at
uh,
least give it to your owner. Like,
or
give it
that,
to the owner and give them
and
my
then they
card
can
that I left
decide.
too, and the sales sheet, and here's all. It's not like you're just walking in and out as like a phantom. Like, I'm leaving collateral behind, because I'm not literally giving you a free beer. I'm giving you a beer in hopes to get on your draft line, or to bring me in on cans and do a special.
Mm,
It's not, and I've, even on the off premise, which I think we'll get there, but like, like I had one guy tell me like I don't drink beer. I'm like, well, you're the beer buyer, dude. How does that work? And he's like, I give me your samples and I'll give them to my roommate. He makes all the decisions for beer. And I was
Oh
like,
my god.
no, but I
That's
actually appreciated that because
okay.
I don't want a guy that drinks beer on holidays
But
telling me
this
that the beer's good or bad when you
yeah.
got a couch potato that can, I'm not
The,
assuming, but, take it home to the roommate who knows. Hey, like I
yeah, I guess
appreciate
so.
that. But he's, he wasn't really the decider as like his roommate was.
That's hilariously unprofessional, but I get it. I guess
Yeah.
it makes
And he
I
was
just
honest.
I guess you appreciate the honesty and rather wait. Like I would say that's more of a fault of the establishment for putting a person who doesn't drink beer in charge of buying the
True.
beer. It's like a person who's in charge of a music store and who doesn't listen to hip hop, and now you have to buy all the rap music. Like you're not going to understand the niche. So
Correct.
okay, now another just a quick other one, two parts question. What's an off premise?
What is what?
Off premise.
Yeah, so off-prem is like grocery stores. It's liquor stores. It's when you're walking in and you
Stores
literally have to
specifically.
purchase it and take it off the premise. You're literally
Oh,
taking it
I get it.
home or to, your kid's baseball practice or whatever wherever you
Very
need it.
important.
That's where it's going, and you're not cracking
Okay.
it open and consuming it. Now you will see like a mix. Like there's actually a Publix, which is a grocery chain in the southeast,
Yeah.
and they're great, but they actually have like an actual craft beer bar inside the Publix. So it's the only place I go to now because I can walk around with a beer and shop,
Get
and
out
it's
of
the
town.
greatest thing ever. But that's two licenses. There's
America.
an off premise and an on premise. On premise,
Gotcha.
the bar and in the establishment, you can have it. But you can also go to the coolers and go ahead and grab some and take them home. But you can't grab one from the cooler, crack it open because
Okay. That's an that's
that's a
not their
no-no.
license. Understood.
Yep.
I've been to Publix numerous times when we were in Miami, but I didn't see one that had a bar. That is
I
exceptional.
think it's something. It was a
Pretty new.
Greenwise is what it was called, and now they're
Green.
converting all the Greenwises into normal Publix, but they're keeping. I was in there the other day and they had trivia night going. I was like, this is like a real
The
bar.
grocery store.
Like, yeah, it was so great. It's so great.
I got to
Welcome to
applaud them, man.
Florida.
Yeah, man. Greatest state in the nation.
There it
Okay.
is.
So I think so. The second part of the question just coming back. So I just want to clarify that. Thank you for that.
Hmm.
And when you're in, say, a restaurant, how do you know? And I guess this kind of applies to everybody, I guess, but like, how do you know what to pitch them as far
Mm.
as to buy? Now, do you worry about what you as the sales rep from the brewery, maybe you've got a mandate from your manager or from the owner or whatever it is, as far as, hey guys, this month we really want to push the pills, so let's try and get that in? Or do you find out gaps in their repertoire that they have and just be like, hey, I noticed you don't have an amber anything there, amber lager could go really well? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, and that goes back to kind of like the initial intro. That's why I do gravitate towards the bartender or I do talk to the server because they're also going to be able to tell me again, like even a busser, hey man, you're cleaning off, a lot of plates and glasses. Like, what do you seen a lot of hazies out there? Are you seeing people drinking more lagers? Like, what do you? And again, that bartender's like that vessel because those are the people that are pouring it and they're seeing
Of
those
course.
trends. I would
Yeah.
open with that all the time. Like, hey, what do you see moving a lot? And then once they tell me that, then I can say, oh, I have that or I don't.
Okay.
But it's tough being a sales rep because again, you're really pushing to get your beer on no matter what. But then you also have to think, does it sell? Because
Mm,
beer goes bad in X amount of months. So you don't want to leave a bad taste in someone's mouth where, hey, the beer didn't move. Well, give me another chance. Let's try something else. You
gotcha.
it's
They might
saturated,
not.
man. There's a lot of people selling beer. You
Yeah.
get you get one or two chances maybe. And if that impression doesn't last or again that beer doesn't move,
It's
you
yeah,
might
it's
you
done.
might not be there.
Mm. So
You might not
then,
be there again.
yeah, you're 100% correct. It's truly, I think that's the biggest challenge of all of this is making that impression. But say like you asked that question. Can you hear me okay?
I'm still
I
here.
think you still here? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
We're good? Okay. You're just going a little bit fuzzy, but your audio is great. So
Okay,
you're
cool,
you're
cool,
still
cool.
tight. So the question where you're like, hey, what's moving? And say if it's hazy IPAs that are moving, if they're already moving, do you pitch a hazy IPA because it will be in another one on their menu to complement the 2 or 3 maybe they've already got, or are you aiming to sort of edge out one and have that be replaced with yours?
That's a really good question. And we're going to talk about distributors a little bit right now, because and it's kind of a good segue, I guess. But like in craft beer, or in beer in general, especially in the States, you can either self distro, which would be like, hey, I make it and I also sell it. So I put it in trucks, I deliver it. My reps are responsible for taking orders and getting money, and they complete that full circle, that full transaction. But then you also have the 3-tier model, which is, hey, I make beer, and now that I made it, I go give it to a distributor, and distributor buys that beer from me. So really, my customer is distributor. A distributor buys beer. Okay. Now, distributor has to get rid of that beer, but that's also my job too. Is I have to say, hey, great, distributor has all this beer. What's not moving from distributor? That could be another point where I'm like, hey, I'm pushing this beer because I need it gone, because again, it goes bad. So I have to push it. Or it's the other side, which is, yes, I'm looking to get my hazy IPA, which is the example we're using, but I have maybe 2 wholesalers. And a lot of the time you're going to see AB wholesalers, which is Anheuser-Busch.
Yep.
Yep, AB InBev. And then you have Molson Coors. And again, now you have boutique wholesalers, and you have like a lot of other wholesalers that are coming out, that because again, portfolios are growing and people need a place to sell their beer. So more wholesalers are going to be needed, especially with all these states having their own laws. But it's interesting because I used to sell beer out of an AB house. So when I look at a tap line, I already know that I can't touch, in most cases, 5 of the 10 taps, because those are those wholesalers' taps. But the other taps are the Molson Coors taps, or the independent craft taps. So that's what I'm going after. So yeah, hazy may be on my my radar to go sell into, but my buddy who let's use like Escape Brewing. Escape Brewing's already there with Goofy Footed. Okay, well, I don't want to touch that. Those are my homies. Those are my friends. Now I'm looking down the draft line saying, well, I see, the Molson Coors guys have a lager. Boom, pivot the conversation. Hey, I also have a lager. I want to leave you a sample of it. It complements really well, but it's I think it's better than that one, right? And then that's where you kind of get into the politics of it. Yeah, it gets like it's really weird. Especially in the 3-tier.
Yeah, I bet. Okay, so then is a wholesaler a distributor, or are they 2 different
Correct.
things?
Yep. No, it's the same terminology. People call them wholesale, distro, distributors.
Same thing. Gotcha.
Yeah. They all share that same term.
Okay. I'm just trying to get this real understanding, and then we'll wrap this up in a second. We'll get to this next beer, because this is killer, man. I'm loving this. So okay. Oh man, appreciate you. So okay, so I get the point with the restaurant, and I imagine a bar would probably be the same concept.
Yep. At least the bar, though. Pairing. Yeah, at least with the bar, like the bartender is a lot of the time, like you have like a head bartender, like even like the head bartender is sometimes the assistant manager, and even GM. I've seen the head bartender be the GM. But they're the people that you're like, I love like, just, hey, you're a world of beer, or you have a ton of things on tap. Like, I love walking into those accounts because they know beer. Like, that's your job. You have to know 100 beers that you're pouring. So that's great. But it's when you get into more like the mom and pop restaurants, or even some like they're kind of chain, meaning they have a lot of stores, but they're still like local. Hey, maybe I have to get to like the the beer buyer, and that's like a corporate person now. So it can change kind of like the landscape of like, hey, yeah, we would love to bring you in the store, but you got to go to Tom, who's the VP of
the whole region, like the Tampa
region.
Yep. So that becomes a headache, or is that like a good thing, because now you've got one point of contact for 20 locations?
For all. And again, it's getting in is the original kind of like oof, but then when you get in, if you do a good presentation and you have good liquid, then there could be a very bountiful win. But again, sometimes just getting there is like crawling tooth and nail, running into them at an event. Oh, fancy seeing you here. Like,
totally right, and that's when you kind of not schmooze, but kind of really like just be cool and
would love to talk to you more. yeah, next Tuesday, but again, like I can't stress how awkward it is to be a beer rep. Like
Yeah,
it's just some
jeez.
awkward times.
Man, you're painting the picture. God, I feel for you all out there. So then those ones are more difficult because you gotta like you can't just pull up to the corporate offices of whatever. I can't even
Yeah,
think of
like a
anything.
Buffalo Wild Wings or like an
Gotcha.
Outback or like, something like that. Like that is such a big entity that you're usually, again, depending on the size of the brewery too, and like the people that they have employed, that's where I'm start looking at like my key accounts manager. Like, hey man, I got this point of contact. Can you pick it up? Because I am strictly trying to be in and out of accounts and not
Oh,
email and texting and doing that part of the business. Other times it's like it's your boss who could be again the owner of the brewery. Depending on the size. Now they're probably saying, "Oh yeah, I know who that is. Let me go. I'll
let
go
me
grab a
talk
beer
to
with
them
him."
and
Yeah, 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 yeah.
gotcha.
And I've
Okay.
gotten leads like that. You get leads from your bosses all the time because
Obviously,
you
that's
know
what they want.
they're
They're
the
gonna hook
they're
you
the
up.
owner. Yeah,
Right, right, right.
and so people want to
Okay.
know the owner of brewery, and then they
Yeah,
wind up meeting, and now I have to do the nurturing and make sure everyone is happy.
of course.
Being the
Okay.
middleman.
No,
Nothing worse
totally.
than your boss getting back to something getting back to your boss, and it's like their friend,
And you're like,
which it happens. So
yeah, you definitely want to be a bit cooler there. We used to love B Dubs as well because it's in Canada. I think it just left, but we used to go to Vermont all the time. And I noticed the one
no
in,
kidding.
yeah, like when we first moved to this city, Hamilton, there was two here. And I couldn't believe my eye. We used to go to Vermont and we used to buy Buffalo Wild Wings and bring it back to Canada. We buy like enough to last us a couple nights.
And
So,
sell it,
we'll-
sell it.
and
No, I'm
sell it
just
off
kidding.
one wing at a time. You want to flat over drum.
You want to flatter a
Yeah,
drummy.
right? Get some serious cash for that. But I noticed in Vermont, they often had a pretty serious selection of the local stuff.
Yeah.
So I would have assumed that even though there's like a corporate thing going on, they might have just gone directly to the store manager or whatever it is who is in the GM of that store, so that I couldn't imagine that like Fiddlehead or Foam or One Trap or something are going to the head office. You know what I'm saying? It felt like it was curated for that area. So I wonder if
Well,
maybe even some chains have like a local buy, like
and
in.
they do. Some
Okay.
will be like, "Hey, here's a local POC, a point of contact, or something like that." But
Mhm.
like Buffalo Wild, I mean, I can kind of speak to Buffalo Wild Wings because we
Sick.
actually worked with them, and that was a corporate thing because you have to also think like the UPC and the SKU has to be in their computer, and that's
Right.
not done on a local level. That's done corporately. Like that has to go into their point of sale system. So
Right.
when you ask for my beer, you have to enter it in and say, "Here's your receipt." And that transaction has to be captured legally. Um, you can't say, "Hey, I'm pouring this" when you're not pouring that because that's not truth. And beer is regulated.
Of course.
So it has to be on a menu. It's got to be in the POS system. There's again they're
Hmm.
paying for the beer, so wholesaler has to get money for that beer. There's a lot of transactions that are happening to make it all legit and work out. But
Mm.
again, it's a twofold. Like I've worked with some, local chains that are like, yeah, you can call on whatever store, and if they bring it in, they bring it in. I trust, the GM or the kitchen manager or whoever is the buyer of those stores. Other times, shut the door right in your face and tell you,
Gotta
nope,
get
it's Todd at the top, and good
That's
luck
it.
getting to him because he doesn't come out of his kingdom.
Interesting. Okay, so it's all circumstantial, it's all different and all hyper specific.
And that's what makes it fun.
Gotcha. Okay. Um, I don't should we crack the next beer then basically the same questions for grocery?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. All right. Now we're doing the next crispy.
Man, I'm so excited for you because I really feel like without crossing the bridge, I dialed in on some of these breweries because they're just to me they're staples and they're all great and none of them are clients by the way because they
None of them.
are
Okay.
just super hyper local brews. So this is Angry
Oh,
Chair.
oof.
Again, Czech-inspired pills with the again I'm going to butcher it, but Saz hops.
Yep.
Um, Again, I'm no aficionado, not crazy on it, but Angry Chair is they're just known again like BarrieHaus. They're just known for their lagers and again those pills and again even like other
Yeah.
styles of beer, but they have a very cool kind of like dark metal, almost like a burial or
Oh, totally. I love burial. Okay.
black
Oh, true.
black
True.
sky, or like yeah, just like dark and metalhead kind of driven. Again,
Huh.
you walk in all smiles.
And they're all just like long-haired dudes doing devil horns.
Yeah, but they're making good beer.
A lot
But
of them
no,
do.
they just actually opened up a brand new spot, which is actually formerly Florida Ave Brewing,
Okay.
because they were in a really small spot that, again, was just kind of homey and local. But they definitely grew because, again, the beers are just, they speak. So, I mean, look at this, dude. I mean,
Yeah,
I could
it's
do the whole
looking.
podcast looking through this.
Do you want to? We could
Yeah,
go.
yeah.
I wouldn't
Is
be
that a
mad at you.
filter? And I'm really proud of how clean my glass is too.
You're doing a great job with that.
No bubbles
Not
sticking
at
to the
all.
side.
There was this was the
Oh wow.
the beer I was most excited about because Angry Chair were on the list of ones that when I went to Miami, which I didn't realize Tampa was 5 hours away, everyone was like, "Oh, you need to go here." And almost every brewery people told me to go to was in Tampa, and these guys were like very based. I think these guys is like Ology,
Yeah, Ology.
Magnanimous,
Yeah.
Cycle. So I know all the names.
Cycle.
Haven't been out there yet, but we can get some of the stuff
Mm-hmm.
in Lewiston in New York. Like one of my favorite stores out there has been importing them, which has been awesome. Three Sons, they get a few things like that. I don't think
Nice.
it's got Angry Chair yet, so this was very cool. I was very excited for this. So again, brother, cheers. Get that in here. This is called Vodnik, by the way. Oh yeah. Oh, this is very different to the last one too.
Yep. And that's
Ooh.
like, it's the complexity. Like I remember just like starting, what really got me passionate about beer, which is so funny, is it's back in my day. You like, craft was like a shock top, like Blue Moon was craft because it wasn't like a traditional like rice beer, like you would have with Miller.
Right.
Or again, your like Miller or your Bud Lights and things like that. So that was one thing I was like, I remember, I think it was a Bell's, I think it was Bell's Oberon, which was like a shock top. It was like a wheat ale. And I remember I was like, okay, what is this? Because this does not taste like any beer I've ever had, really, even comparing it to like a shock top or a Blue Moon. And that really got me like passionate about beer before I even started selling beer, because I was like, oh my gosh, we just had two different Pilsners, but I mean, if you kind of looked at them side by side, you might think, oh, these are kind of the same, but the flavor profile is completely different.
So different. It's so different, and it's like
makes you respect it more.
Very much so. And I think this is a little more. The other one was 4.5. According to Untapped, this is 5.6. It doesn't taste it though, and the can doesn't say. Unless I'm blind, can you see it on the can?
No, and that's funny because sometimes I've noticed that like cans
America
don't have their
brews,
ABV on it, or like there's things that are left off. I'm like,
that would not happen here. That's like the laws would not let it happen. But in America, they always have the ridiculous government warning about don't drink while you're pregnant. Like, no shit.
Yeah. I always love the recycle refund. Always love that. 5 cents.
Like, sure, we know.
Thanks, man.
I'm taking it back.
As a kid, inflation hasn't hit the recycling, I guess.
Right? I guess not. It's this one is so interesting. It's very like I feel like it's got a nice sweetness that's different to the last one. Like it's a touch sweeter, which I quite
smell it a lot sweeter on the nose.
Yeah, like herbal, lemon.
Yeah, I like the lemon call out there.
Yeah, it's like a little like that citrusy, that little lemony sweetness going on. Yeah, it's like got a lot of. I mean, maybe it actually is 5.6 because it feel like it's punchy. There's lots going on, but it doesn't. Sometimes it can taste a little. Anything over 5, like if it's not extremely well made, I feel like you can really taste it in a beer like this. So obviously it's very well made, but
it's all hidden in there. Yeah, they do incredible work, and it's really cool to watch a brewery like them just get notarized and grow. Again, you're in Miami and people are talking about them.
I'm talking in Canada. What people are talking about them?
Oh, geez. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's even crazier. We love that. But that's for a reason.
Excited. It is.
Yeah, it's for a reason. Again, it's that just attention to detail.
Yeah, man. It's when I posted about hey, I'm going to Florida, what do I need to do? And people, I don't think even to this day I've had more people more passionately give me recommendations for beers. Jeez, I'm so sorry. But it's like I love that. I think that's the best. That's my favorite thing ever. And yeah, almost all of them were from Tampa that everybody
Yeah.
was losing their minds about. So
And Tampa's been, you got some people on the west or on the East Coast that are staples that have been around for a while. But I think the communities of Tampa really embraced what beer could bring. I mean, we have so many tap rooms and so many. These are people's jobs. Like, someone's daughter might be a bartender at a local spot, and it's
mm,
not your local sports bar, it's an actual brewery. And now those breweries are making food and it's becoming an experience. And I always tell people, like, if you see a brewery, you're in most cases in like a gonna be booming spot.
yeah,
Because
facts.
I feel like I've seen breweries get built in these industrial areas, and all of a sudden there's all these restaurants that are popping up, and there's all these different things to do, axe throwing, mini putt. Like, I love going to beer
So far.
conferences because it's like I get to go to all these different breweries and see what's around them, and
Yeah.
that's really the eye opener of like, oh wow, this was the first thing here, and now look at what it's created, this ecosystem. So I think Tampa really needed it. Um,
Mm,
I Tampa had a lot of chain stuff, and it's kind of drudged down, and then now all these different sectors and areas are popping up where it's like, hey, we want more, culture. We want to really show what we can do. And it's all the way over the bridge because you have St. Pete too. That's just
of
like
course. Still in
crushing
that
it.
too, right? Yeah, Green Bench and all that
Yeah,
stuff.
Green Bench, the Gulfport Brewing. I mean, St. Pete Brew. There's so many,
It's
and it's
fantastic.
again humbling stuff.
Yeah, man. You're in a beautiful spot. This is fantastic, and thank you. And the best part about all of these is I have one more of everything. So it's
I got you. I
I
got you.
appreciate that a lot because then I can just really soak it up. Not that I'm not soaking it up now, but give it a second banger. So this is
It's nice when you
beautiful.
do a podcast without your other partner. You got
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
now I don't have to share.
I could hook him up. I mean, I might hook him up. We'll see how we go.
No.
We'll see how we go.
Split seas. Split it.
Exactly. Well, he lived 5 hours from me.
Oh
6 hours.
geez.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's basically from Tampa to Miami as far as where he lives. But we'll see how we go. My
You might
throw
have
in a
to make a
little
trip.
something, right? Exactly. Maybe split. So this is fantastic. So the next part of just finishing off that last round of questions in the beginning was how it works going into the grocery stores.
Yeah.
So I imagine there's probably just like there's a slightly different approach as you explained between maybe a restaurant and then a bar. I imagine there's those independent small grocers versus the big, Publix, Kroger type chains.
Mhm.
What's the general deal when you go into a grocery store? Because my guess for that would be you probably would need to set up an appointment more because there's no publicly accessible office. Like you'd have to ask a member of staff. They'll go out the back and hey, is Jeff here? He's going to come down. Yeah. Like, how does that typically work?
So traditionally, and hopefully, you're already walking into a brewery that has what we call a chain mandates, because majority now again there are local mom and pop like off-premise accounts. There's definitely those little, they're in a strip plaza. It says liquor on the sign. That's like an independent, a person that just starting a liquor store because
Right.
they like beer, or they know they can make money, or whatever the thing is. So walking in there is kind of almost like walking in a restaurant.
Okay.
Hey, I know this is your lifeblood, and I want to make sure that what I bring in with my brands and SKUs fits your demographic and moves so you make money. Like that's kind of the approach. But otherwise, you're walking into these, again, a Publix. Like you're not walking into a Publix. It's just not the way they operate.
Okay.
You have to go to corporate, which again, insert boss or key accounts manager, or owner. Someone has to fuel that. But now that I'm in, then most of the time it's just walking in and like checking shelves. You can still, like, I always loved walking around and just, hey, buyer or manager or whoever, floor supervisor, I'm here to check on the beer. Because again, these are the people that are walking through the halls, seeing the customers. Oh, hey, you got any options for beer? Yeah, I just saw this rep. Again, it's like a rinse and repeat kind of cycle. But really, you're just walking in, checking the shelves, checking the code. Always check the code. Making sure your beer's not going out of date.
Of course.
And then if it is, give
What do you
that
do?
back to the store buyer. Hey, store buyer, I noticed this. It's a gray area, but maybe you do a little swapsies. Hey, I have some samples in my car, already have, because most of our samples were still in pack, maybe you do a little swap just to show good faith and good love. Otherwise, you might have to get with the wholesaler rep. Hey man, just letting you know our beer is going to be expired in 2 weeks. What can we do to get that moved? Do we start talking about pricing? Hey, can it be a BOGO? Can we, but again, now we're talking to wholesaler and off-premise account owner or buyer, and they now have to work together to say yes, to get it to move, we'll do a BOGO, we'll do a price spiff, we'll do $1 off, whatever it is. But it becomes so much out of a rep's hand that you just don't have the control that you wish you had, but you understand that it's, again, Publix has 300 stores or something like that in Florida maybe alone. What are you going to do?
Right.
But I've heard some horror stories. I think Trader Joe's is one of those ones where they tell reps, don't walk in our store. You can walk in the store and check. You can check the shelf and make sure your stuff's good, but don't touch anyone else's beers. Don't move anything else, and do not talk to staff. I've heard someone say, hey, I didn't know. I walked in, talked to staff. 24 hours later, they were pulled. They were off Trader Joe shelves.
Wow.
And it was just because again, they don't want their people to not be able to help a customer because they're talking to you about beer. And they're not a decision maker. They're not, so you have to almost do it in passing. Hey man, nice to see you again. Hey, how are you? Have a good day. Maybe you throw them a sticker. Maybe you throw them a koozie, give them a little swag on the low, but it's just a quick hi bye. And again, your managers or bosses should be telling you hey, these chains, they're self-sufficient. I deal with them. I communicate with them on a higher level. That gets passed down to the store. Don't worry about it. Just go in, check shelves, check display. And that it's the flip side too. It's also, hey, we are mandated here. Now go work with that local person. ABC and Total Wines, they're like that. You have to get in on a chain level. But once you're in, now talk to those people. Hey man, I would love to get an end cap. I want to get a display. You guys bring in 10 cases and we'll hook you up. We'll do a sampling for the customer. Again, these are just ways that help create a rate of sale, but also kind of show those buyers hey, you're investing in me, we'll invest in you. Because again, we want people to get excited about the beer you brought in and move it. So we all make money. But it is two-pronged.
Gotcha. That makes a lot of sense. So then the process, and obviously I think I oversimplified, hey, how do you go up to Publix? Getting into grocery is probably an application process. You probably have to go to some sort of high up thing. You have to probably send all the samples, and then it's when you get into those stores, that's a massive win from what I understand, because of what you said, because there's whatever it was, hundreds of stores and whatever in that area. And it kind of just gets rolled out to all of these stores, and then all the reps just pop in. So I guess that's a probably simplified version. So maybe that's almost out of scope of this, because the rep doesn't really do that. That's done maybe at a higher level, in both within the brewery and within the chain.
You're definitely paying, again, a key accounts manager is what we would call them, or again, your VP of sales handles that, depending again on how big and scalable that business is. But yeah, I mean, it was I worked for someone that had a lot of chain, so it was really cool to be able to walk in there and say, cool, we're already here, but now what can I do? Because again, you've walked into liquor stores, the shelves are just incredibly I get anxiety. I look at all the shelves and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna be here an hour just reading all the labels and looking all the stuff, and some artwork catches your eyes, and now it's just so much going on. And then now add that onto a rep where they're trying to compete with all these brands. Okay, now what can I do? So they're not walking in to sell, they're more walking into hey, how do I raise brand awareness? Yeah, how do I get it out of the store? Now that it's in, great. Now how do I get consumers to buy it?
Okay, and Chris just noted here, you need the corporate beverage manager contact to get to big chains. So that's
there you go.
Multiple meetings and blah, blah, blah. Okay, understood. And then you said, you can come and pitch other ways. I still would imagine with, you mentioned that with Total Wines and stuff, that you can go in on a store level to be hey guys, and then you can maybe talk to the GM of that store and just be look, we'd love to do an end cap. If you order this much, we can do this. We'll do you a free sample.
If you're already
mandated
through the chain. Yep. As long as you're already in the store.
Gotcha.
Yep, absolutely. And it's crazy because like I used to walk into those Total Wines and again those like chains, and they have a calendar, and you're walking in there saying not not really much. You're just saying, hey, like when's the next time I can get in to do a sampling for your customers? And sometimes those calendars are months out. So
Wow.
you're like, is my beer even going to be here months out? Like I don't know how long we're mandated for because you have resets every spring, summer, winter.
They're
There's
just
all
like
these seasonals that are coming out. Yeah, like it's it moves quick. And if you don't have someone
mm,
on top of it on that corporate level talking to those main buyers, then it's almost a disservice to the reps because they're doing their hard work to get it to move. But are you going to be able to get me in when I have my sampling in 2 months? Because
gotcha.
again, there could be a reset where that beer is just gone and something else is here.
So it's got to
So
be fully coordinated or it doesn't work for the
yep,
large ones. Okay.
yeah,
So then on the smaller liquor store, the independent liquor stores, personally, that's where I prefer to shop. I find the chains are cool if I go to a new city and I just want to something maybe familiar. I want a 6 pack of
yep.
Two Hearted or High Light or something like that. Um, I
Shout
like,
out Tampa.
yeah, shout out Tampa, of course. That's it's the goat. So I like that was super dope. I know that I think they're called planograms that supermarkets have where
Yep,
they're like 97.3% is Budweiser and then the rest is, the craft
pretty
and it's
pretty
getting better,
accurate.
but it's getting slowly better. So I know that
Great.
like maybe one of the other questions on maybe we'll come back to it, but I was thinking that more grocery tends to my guess as a consumer is that grocery tends to have different formats
Hmm.
than independent liquor stores. I found that most independent liquor stores will do single cans, which as the consumer, that's what I want.
Yep.
And and the larger stores would always have those beautiful cardboard box, pre-packed 4 pack, 6 pack, 12 pack, whatever it might be. So the format might have, and then they rarely would sell singles. Sometimes I notice in like Western New York, there'll be supermarkets
Starting to
that
get
will
there. Yeah.
starting to get there. They'll start a craft beer section. They have those walk-in fridges with a bunch of
Mix and
4 pack.
matches.
Sometimes they have forced mix and match 6 packs, which is cool, but still pisses me off because maybe I only want two, maybe I want three.
Exactly. And you have to put them, and that could be a law. That could be a law of that actual state.
That makes sense.
That's hey, it has to be in a 6 pack format or a 4 pack format. Like
From
you
grocery or whatever.
correct exactly. I always say every state's its own country when it comes to bev alcohol, and
Literally.
it's a lot of work. Shout out Wendy. Wendy is our regulatory affairs, and
She's probably working overtime.
I don't know how she does it, but every state's changing, so
Non-stop,
it's
huh?
crazy.
Yeah, you're right. And you're right about that. I noticed that a lot of, you mentioned Burial before, they're one of my faves. They only
Hmm.
just, like earlier this year, started shipping to New York State. So I have got the address that you sent these to in New York. So I was able to order Burial there, which was amazing.
Nice.
But most of the breweries that I want to buy from do not ship to New York State. Even when I was in Florida, in Miami, I was like, oh, I'm here for a month. I could order from breweries I couldn't find anything that would even ship to Florida. So like, I know that whilst America arguably is like Europe that all speaks the same language, the rules are like that. And you have to have independent agreements. Florida would have to have an agreement with all other 49 states on the continental US to be able to do that, or that brewery has to figure it out one by one if they feel like it's worth the paperwork.
Yeah,
So
and it depends on too. Like nowadays, you have people that I would call them a wholesaler, but what they're doing is they're acting as a wholesaler entity. From my understanding, they're
from
a
the shipping
wholesaler
side.
entity, but they're able to do B2C. So they're able to
Yeah.
say, "Hey, we have beer now. You can go here, and grab it," or "Hey,
Or
just
we
ship
can
it
send
here,
it
and we'll get
directly
it
to
into."
you.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like direct to consumer, D2C, direct to consumer,
Gotcha.
and that's beautiful. But how they're getting to do that is by saying, "Hey, well, we're an entity like a wholesaler. We're a wholesaler, and so if you ship it to us, great. Now we can get it to consumers within these states because we are wholesalers in these states, so we can legally ship or move it in a
That
way
makes
that
sense.
makes sense with those laws in those states."
Completely
Um,
makes sense. And I also reckon, because I've heard this about Canada. So in Ontario here, it was the first place, I believe, in Canada where any brewery can ship to any address in the province. I lived in Montreal, which is in Quebec, for 10 years. They cannot at
yeah,
all.
yeah.
And Ontario can't ship to Quebec, or any other states can't, meaning legally, but some do. Some don't give a fuck. But
I don't understand where they come from either. These laws don't make sense.
It's ridiculous, bro. They're 100-year-old law. This is what I won't get started, but it drives me nuts that all of this is fraudulent. It's based on the 1920s prohibition laws that everything hung on to just with desperation. We were just in Nashville last week, and all of the rules there were obscene. I couldn't believe. We went to a distillery, a whiskey tasting at a distillery, and they were like, "Hey, just laying this out. It's not me. It's the rules. If we like me and my girlfriend, they were like, if she didn't finish her tasting, I'm not allowed to touch it. Like I can't finish her tasting, and she can't finish mine.
This is her serving. This is yours serving. Yeah.
And they kept talking about prohibition and moonshine. I was like, fucking crap, so much. So
I bet they weren't regulating serving sizes.
They kind of were. They weren't exactly the same. So probably not. But my understanding is when I order, it's even funnier because I'm ordering as a Canadian, paying with a Canadian credit card to an address in Western New York. They're charging me. This is my guess based on, I could just check the receipt, but this is what they would do. What I've been told, if it happened in Canada, was as where the customer is, but like they're in North Carolina, Burial can't charge a customer in New York State the same tax that they have in North Carolina. You have to charge New York State tax, and I think that's where you're saying that they have to become a wholesaler. Maybe they have to have a wholesaling license or whatever it is in that state to be able to be like, hey, now we can charge whatever, I think 8% or whatever it is, that tax to that consumer in that state. And they've got those agreements with all 10, 20 states that they can ship to, whatever it is. Yeah. So I think that's a lot of the challenge. So
yeah, it's on a federal level when you start talking about like transactional money, like who's paying for what, where does that cash go? Again, the taxing on that product. It's almost like import exporting, but again, we're all one country, but we're broken down in the states that have their own import export laws,
rules or whatever.
Yep. So it gets weird, but again, people are onto it. Someone saw that as like a loophole almost. It's like, well, hey, I can just be an entity that just ships. I don't go store to store. I go person to person.
Right.
You're not getting it in stores. You're only getting it from
the source.
That type of direct to consumer kind of platform.
And they would have to, for it to be based on what we're talking about here, there would be probably a lot of admin and probably upfront expenses. Say on just Burial for the best example, they opened up New York. I think not long after they opened up Massachusetts. I wanted to ship from, I think it was Trillium or something like that, because I got a friend in Vermont. And during COVID, got some shipped to him, and we did a little cheeky one over the border, and it worked. But they could ship, but they won't ship to New York. Trillium won't. They'll ship to Vermont, but they won't ship to New York. A lot of breweries that I want to buy from, the Vale, they'll ship to Vermont, won't ship to New York. Pisses me off. So my guess is they have to, one, be willing to do the admin work to make it happen, and two, they have to probably know that there's a reasonable customer base that is worth the effort, time, resource, investment, and actual financial investment to set that up, to be like, well, if we open up New York State, I really, we'd have to know that there's enough. I don't even know how they would know that. Like, there's probably no quantitative way to figure that out.
Well, there is. I mean, you have the likes of Nielsen or Circana, which they're scan based data. So it's really cool. Is you actually get data that says like, hey, show me in upstate New York, Lake George, Saratoga area. I want to know what brands are being sold within that area. And I can look at graphs and say, wow, New England, IPAs naturally might be the big one. But it's big in summer because I can put like a time on there where I can say, oh, but in the winters, we're noticing porters are up. Porters are
just
big
by
in winter.
styles, as opposed
just
to
by styles, size of cans. Hey, or what are 19.2s? What are 19.2 ounce cans? Where did that come from? Well, you saw it. Yeah, it's crazy, but like
they're great.
I saw Bell's Two Hearted. Bell's Two Hearted is in there, and I'm like, oh my gosh, a 19.2 of Bell's. But
I just got a sip of Sunshine, which is 8%. And I saw this one here. A few of them started doing it here. There's one brewery called BAOS dropped a 9% double IPA in the stovepipe.
And that's another thing too. Like in certain states, you can only have a certain ABV to a can size.
Right. I guess there's so many.
And that's wine, spirits, liquor. I mean, it's.
Okay, so it's kind of bonkers. Okay.
Yeah, it's all amok. But yeah, but that data does exist, and people
Okay.
can literally look at markets and say, yeah, I think we Pilsners are crushing it in New York. Again, upstate New York may be the example there.
Mhm.
Fantastic. Now I can buy that data, and it's not necessarily cheap, but I have those insights now to make that business decision.
To see
So
if it's worth risking.
correct.
And I guess, okay, this is
Or you
great.
could also go the direct to consumer way, which would
That's
be
more
getting
what I was
into
saying.
those. Yeah, you can get into those places and then use that direct to consumer data to say, yeah, we should get an actual 3-tier wholesaler and move product in there because we have thousands of people,
Who
a
are already
month
buying.
buying our brands, and they're more, maybe they're all coming out of a zip code or a few zip codes around each other. Hey, let's put a rep in there. And that's where that rep comes in and starts building the relationship. Hey, we're here. Von Trapp, you shouted out Von Trapp earlier.
Yep.
Shout out to Von Trapp, client of ours. They're incredible.
Love it.
They just
Phenomenal.
released in the Florida market. And so we met them up at, yeah. Oh, I'm so spoiled now. I mean, we're drinking some great pills, but Von Trapp, I mean, OGs.
God tier.
Shout out yeah, all day. But they came in and we wound up at it's a place called Dunderbox. It's a very authentic German restaurant. They brew their own beer. They have a ton of tap lines, and we did a nice launch party with them. But they must have saw something in their data that was like, hey,
let's get into Florida.
I think Florida makes sense.
Huh. Okay.
And their turnout was pretty insane. I mean, people had like Von Trapp shirts on. We stayed the night there. We've been like,
Yeah.
I forgot. I'm so horrible with names, but the owner, she was there.
Sam. Oh, we had him on the podcast. We did a pod there with Sam Von Trapp. He's like Maria Von Trapp's grandson. Like,
yeah,
from
and
the movie.
I think this might be.
Maybe
No. It was a lady. It was a lady.
Was she? She could be his wife potentially, or sister.
No, I think
maybe?
she's a Von Trapp. Yeah, no.
Oh,
I think
so maybe she's his sister.
Yeah, but she was there. Oh, horrible. Chris, shout out Chris in the chat.
Chris Chris in the chat. W's in the chat. L's in the chat.
but like just meeting her and again hearing that.
He's checking. Maybe Emily.
But it was just like a cool experience. But again, like people traveled there once and they heard again through the marketing and through the wholesalers and through people putting it out on socials, like, hey, they're going to be releasing their beer in Florida, and here's the places they're going to be. And I just heard like, dude, those events were pretty busy. And again, I was there for the one in there. So, but again, they're using that data to say, hey, we're not there yet, but we know that our beer will move there because we're seeing that trend.
Interesting. I wonder then, it must be a different, say, like bringing it back just to Barrie or coming into Western New York then.
Yeah.
I haven't seen their product in stores out there, but they ship there. So therefore, it's probably a different license to go DTC from North Carolina to New York customers. But if you want to do wholesale to stores, it's probably a different license for that.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Okay. So it's different rules.
It's either a different license or a different business model. Because again, if it's
you can't do both?
I'm not too sure. And again, like I don't know. I would imagine. I believe you would be right. And actually, I've never thought of this before until right now. But that is a good point. Like, why doesn't someone like Pepin, who's an AB wholesaler down here in Tampa, like why don't they do direct to consumer? What's stopping them from having something that gives them, direct to consumer? That's a good point.
Do wholesalers do direct to consumer?
Well, you're putting yourself as a wholesaler entity to make it like that. That's my understanding of it. Is hey, I'm becoming a wholesaler entity, but I'm not necessarily selling into stores.
Oh, sorry, that's what we were saying.
I'm selling directly to consumers.
Understood.
But again, like it's all kind of new. It's pretty new. It used to be just, hey, you're either self-distributing or you're in a 3-tier model.
Chris says laws don't allow them direct to consumer for wholesalers from that in.
So it's a different license. So it has to be a different license.
Different.
No.
So
but again, those states have to have that type of license to even purchase.
Every state is different.
So
gotcha.
Yeah.
So they would have to figure it out. I guess all of the sort of nuance aside, like if a brewery is trying to offer direct to consumer, either direct to consumer shipping or to enter that state as a wholesaler to sell direct, because obviously now it's two different forks in the road, like it's completely separate to then sell to stores. They would either base it off that Nielsen data that you were talking about to see, hey, we got a bunch of these styles. A lot of these hype breweries are out there. If they're a Burial who was actually OG hype, like they just had their 10th anniversary, like they could probably make a somewhat educated guess. Well, there's, maybe they have the credit cards of people who come. So when I went to Burial in Nashville, gave my credit card, they'd be like, cool, Canadian guy. Imagine if someone from New York who has a New York zip code on their credit card, and then they might be able to run those numbers in their POS system to be like, yo, like 15% of our sales in the last 6 months were from New York customers. Therefore, they probably quite prone to buying direct from the source, and they keep offering deals. They keep doing like sending these email blasts out, which is kind of genius.
Mailing list.
Give you the mailing list where they're like,
and that's what I
buy
love
these
about
packs, free shipping.
Yeah, and it's those point of sale systems now that they have too. Like the Arrives of the world. Like, hey, they turn the screen around and, hey, would you like to get mailing? Hey, tip mailing address. Cool, stay in touch. That is all data that you can get. But I also think it's like, I mean, you're having people in Canada talk about Angry Chair.
Yep, passionately so.
That word of mouth is like, hey, that's gonna get back to someone
eventually. If you think about, it will. But if you think about, right. The interesting thing is there's absolutely no way in hell that you can ship to Canada because international law for alcohol is the most insane thing ever in human history. But what you can assume is if you're able to determine what they call postal codes here, whether it's Ontario or say Quebec, which would be probably, if we're on the East Coast, a lot of Quebec people are the snowbirds and they'll go to Florida half the year. Like, it's a big, big thing. And if you're a brewery in the States and you're noticing a bunch of Canadian zip codes, if you're able to like look and geolocate them to say, hey, all these people are in Toronto. Toronto is 2 hours from Buffalo. Therefore, these people travel for beer because they're in Florida and we're getting their zip code or their postal code. So maybe if we introduce direct to shipping, they'll know about that connect point where you shipped my stuff to. And then a lot of them probably have that, or maybe it's smarter to go direct to wholesale and start that wholesale license and then get our beers in that store because they're going to be nostalgic for every time they come to Tampa. They're going to want these particular beers. Well, now they can get them at their favorite stores in Buffalo and Western New York. I imagine that's probably how they're coming to those decisions. And that is awesome. I love that.
Yeah, it's either that or the data. Yeah. And it's the word of mouth. I mean, I think it's a lot of it. And I think one of your previous podcasts, we were talking about marketing. And I think that's another big thing is like marketing on socials. Like some of these people have 10, 20, 30, 100,000 followers. Hey man, we now do D2C and boom, now it's gone. Now it's in the wind and now everyone's know. And again, that's why people want that D2C kind of type of business. It's because they don't have to worry about what store is it. Let me go on a beer finder. Let me look at it. Let me try to find ways to even find the beer in a store. Or it's coincidental. You poke your head and you check a shelf and it's there. Wow. Or it's, hey, go to this website where we do D2C. Now get it. And and I think that's a super slick model to sell. And it just shows kind of how beer sales is evolving. It used to just be, hey, get it at the stores you can or walk into the tap room. Now I can get it shipped to my house, if available in that state.
Yep. Which is
cool.
Phenomenal. Okay, I love that. So then now speaking of the, I know we kind of like tangent there, but I enjoyed that. The independent liquor stores, and I feel like that's probably where a lot, like there's more legwork because they're all independent and therefore if there's 1,000 points of sale in any given city, that's 1,000 stores you physically have to have a human walk into. But in the specialty beer store, there is probably going to be a lot less than that in any given city, even in a large city. And my guess would be that, I like if you're a sales rep, you'd just walk in and see what's up. You'd look around and be like, okay, do they have breweries similar? So if you're Angry Chair, I would, without having gone there, my guess is they're probably in the hype realm, in that sort of world of breweries that people are excited about and travel for. So they'd be like, all right, well, we walk into a store and like, do they have tripping animals? Do they have
good call out?
Love them, had them on the pod, Champions. I don't know, whatever. We talk burial, resident culture, fucking equilibrium, or Fidens, blah, blah, blah. Have you got these on the shelf? And you're like, okay, if you have, then maybe there's a chance that it'll be a fit. And because they're specialty, I'm just saying this, and you could tell me how you feel about it, but I would imagine that because the stores are probably a little bit more of a turnover and mostly singles, maybe some 4-packs, their mandate as an independent liquor store is to have the freshest, newest drops as soon as possible all the time. So they would almost be more receptive if you walked in from a brewery, if you're a newer brewery, or maybe something that you have to kind of have a tasting to get them excited about it. But maybe there's one in that I go to in Lewiston called Brewed and Bottled. We go there all the time. Shouts to Chris. He's a champion. He's the owner. He's the buyer. I don't know really what, but I imagine if you walked in there and spoke to him directly, go, hey man, we're from this brewery. He's like, cool. You give him a sample and he's like, oh, this is fire. And then like last time I was there, he got a big shipment of stuff and he had a bunch of Magnanimous from Tampa. So I just got one of everything from all that. I was like, sick. Give me one of all. They're all fresh. Super excited because I caught it as it dropped, and they weren't 4 to 6 weeks old. They were maybe 2 weeks old. And I was like, amazing. So
and they go quick.
And they go quick. And I want to make sure. So like your experience with the independent liquor stores, are they a little different? Are they more receptive? Do they am I accurate in saying that they are probably, excited to get the newest stuff and maybe try a new brewery just to see, or how's it go?
I think both scenarios play out. There's one where it's definitely more like, hey, I have a liquor store because I'm passionate. I love, I go to, like, I have, my buddy Kevin runs a liquor store. He has 2 or maybe 3 now. And they're great. They're out of Newport Richey. They're awesome. Coastal Wine and Liquors. Shout out. But he was one of those guys that's like, hey, I'm going to Kentucky because I'm going to pick out my own barrel. And then I'm going to be able to say that this is our whiskey with this company. He's putting in that extra effort because he genuinely cares. He wants to give the people in the community buying from his liquor store the best selection. So he's going out and finding barrels that he wants, hey, I want this barrel and I want this barrel to be bottled and sent to me. You can do that in alcohol, especially in like whiskeys and other things like that. Same thing with beer. I've walked into plenty of liquor stores where it is a lot of AB, Miller Coors, like, just, hey, what are people grabbing to go on their boat or to party with? It's 18 packs, right? The store's riddled with 18 packs of beer. And then you get this little craft section. And that's usually when I usually just walk out in most cases, because I'm competing with other people's core brands and they don't understand what seasonals are. And they don't understand what the hype is around some of, the brands. Like, again, like if he's not going to Angry Chair or talks to people about that stuff, or he's even listening to the client, which is the buyer, like, hey man, you guys got any of this or that? Like, okay, cool. All right, later. Like you probably do that once and then you never go back into that independent. So there's that side of it where they're just not educated and they're just trying to sell booze. I've walked into some, independent liquor stores and half the shelves are empty. They're not even restocking stuff. They're just trying to get it to move because, again, whiskey and things like that don't go bad, but beer does. And if beer ain't moving, why do I have a cooler full of beer?
Like, you mean beer period, not a specific brewery?
No, not a specific brewery. Just because, again, the demographic that's walking into that liquor store may be people that are just pulling Bud Lights and they're grabbing a bottle of whiskey or a tequila to make margaritas. They're not looking for craft, because that's also another cool thing when you talk about data is like, hey, I can understand a demographic or a zip code or an area based off of what's moving with those scans. So I think that's one side of the conversation. I think the other side is, yeah, man, you do run into some really cool. I have a ton of them where I'm walking in and they're passionate about craft beer. They're passionate about anything craft. Their coolers are full, and it's rotators. Hey, this is the new seasonals. These are the new hot things. Here's the cores that we know people like, because again, I have my regulars come in and they have to have that brand. They have to have that SKU, and they buy, 2, 3, 4 packs a week. That's great. That's what reps' dreams are. But also on the independent side, that's where we can play. So it also goes back to like that on-premise that we were talking about. On-premise has chain where you're kind of putting a little, a bubble, a little box. But then you have the other side where you're like, hey, no, we got on and off premise independent accounts, and that's where they want to play. They want us on their menus if they're on premise. They want us to build a display if they're off premise. And it's just, again, knowing that customer and that buyer and looking at the store. I mean, are the bottles, dusted? That is like, you can walk by and just put your finger on a bottle and you'll be like,
Yep.
Maybe I don't need to put my beer here because I'm going to be the bad guy when it doesn't move. But this guy doesn't want to take my sales sheet. He doesn't want me to talk to him about it. He doesn't also want to get sampled on it. So how's my product going to move?
Do you have to explain that to the boss if you decide to do that, to say as a sales rep?
Not necessarily. And that goes back to like the day in life of a rep. It's you're very much in control of your day to day and those conversations. Unless it's like a really big account, or maybe your boss told you, hey, get into this account, then maybe you're going back to your boss saying, hey, man, I need help. Hey, I need help. I can't get it. Or maybe you're saying the opposite. Hey, I don't believe in that account. I've done that a lot where I'm like, It's a smoky pool hall. They're doing $2 tall boys.
It's not.
And you want me here? Yeah, I know they move product, but they move PBR. They're not moving, again, juicy hazy IPAs. Right. So why am I forcing it there? So there again, it goes awkward is going to be the key word. It gets awkward at that point.
Interesting.
But yeah, on and off prem, again, night and day differences. But then you have those independent and chain sectors where it's, hey, am I reaching up to somebody to get a placement, or am I cool on a local level, on a personal level, to really build that relationship and get the product moving?
Gotcha. Chris said, "Got to find the bromosa for the boat."
There you go.
Which I guess is what you were talking about before. I'd never heard bromosa, but I'm here for it. I love it.
Yeah, tangerine IPA.
Let's fucking go. I noticed, like, say at Brewed and Bottle that I go to in Lewiston, New York, they also have a bar in the store. So it's basically they've got like we got a bunch of fridges, and they've got a bar and a bunch of seating at the front and a whole seating thing in the back. And it's like the perfect thing. So for example, I had a Magnanimous on tap, and then I went and bought like 3 or 4 of their cans. Because I bought different ones than what I had on tap.
And you can taste it before you buy it. So if there's a rep not there doing that sampling, which is why like we stressed, like, dude, liquid to lips is real. Like it has its own phrase, liquid to lips. That's a real thing. But that's like going back to the Publix.
Yes.
Like that's so great that I can try the beer before. And 4-packs can be $12, $14. I bought a 4-pack the other day. It was $22. Like, it was amazing.
I spent 30 plus, but yes. Yeah.
It's amazing, but at the same time, it's a risk, because if I don't like it, then hey, homies come over and drink it, or it gets skunked.
Well, you got to force yourself through it, and because
I've never not drank a beer, but but there have been some cringe beers out there where you force yourself.
Yeah, you're right, and that's the thing about the format, which maybe I'll hold off on that conversation because I know we're going to touch on that in a little bit as far as like formats in general, because I'm a massive proponent of the single cans for that exact reason. Every single thing I purchased, almost, I went to one store in Nashville that I went to a brewery called Barrique. Shouts to Joel and them there. They were awesome, and they were like, "Yo, go to this store. They got the best thing." And I managed to get some Burial. I got some Resident Culture, who are my 2 favorites from North Carolina out there, and some Zool from Knoxville, which I heard about.
There you go. And XUL, look it up.
XUL, yeah, so cool. And it was like, this is great. But the other thing I was going to say on top of that was, there's usually, if I'm going to somewhere new, think about beer nerds. I know we're probably talking we're talking a bit of both tonight, but say you and me and Chris, I would imagine whenever you go somewhere new, I do a lot of research. Like I just went to a bunch of new places. I hadn't been to Detroit for 7 years. So we went there, went to Nashville, through Louisville, and to Indianapolis. I didn't know shit about shit. And I had to do tons of research. And I was able to find out. And I feel like the stores that care about craft beer, the beer community shares that with each other. So I know the place in Rochester. I know the places in Buffalo, which is where I go monthly. So I know exactly where to go. And every time I go, I try to go to a different store as well, to go and I'll go to my favorite store, but I'll go to some of the others to be like, what do they got? What's going on? Suss it out. And the beautiful thing is the beer nerds share that with each other. So if you start to get known as a craft beer store, like, hey, these guys get the best stuff in from all over the country. They get all the rare stuff. Maybe they get some European stuff. Yeah. Like that word gets around, and then people like us we'll all go there and make sure that we support them, because if we can go to these stores, I imagine same as you, if you go to a store out there in Tampa that may have like the one you shout out with your boy, they might be able to get stuff in from different states or from maybe Miami that you can't get easily or whatever, and you're like, well, I want to keep them in business.
Yep, absolutely.
They're serving you as a craft beer consumer. You're like, all right, and people share that as opposed to maybe gatekeeping. I find that, like, I got one here in Hamilton that I go to, because he goes to the most fire breweries every week and picks them up, because those breweries won't even send it to him, so he goes there personally. So I would rather go to him because, one, they're like an hour from me, and two, like a lot of them do 4-packs, so it's so sick. I can go to this one store, save on gas, save on time, pay a dollar or two premium to save me shipping and to save me 4-packs, and I want to keep him in business because he keeps me drunk.
Yep.
In the best possible way, you know. So I feel like there's like, that's another good thing. And if you're a rep, you are contributing to that reputation. And I feel like there's got to be like no negative, like there's no downside.
No, the real downside, and great insight there, but the real downside is when the owner, the person that's in that establishment, doesn't care. That's the downside. And that's kind of what I was saying. Like, I would walk into some stores. Usually you're not seeing a lot of traffic. Sometimes you sit in front of a store for 30 minutes and just watch. Hey, what are they walking in, walking out with? Yeah, are they walking out with an 18 packs? Are they walking out with liquor? Are they walking out with, I remember sitting in front of one liquor store and it was strictly liquor. And sure enough, when I walked in, they had one cooler. And you bet it was dominant with, the 24 pack, the 18 packs of the AB Miller Coors, the standards, which again, those are the movers for those people in that area. But also you could make a case for, well, maybe if you put more craft in there and you put more effort in there, and again, that's a rep's job, is to come in and now raise the brand awareness. Hey, let me do a sampling. While I'm doing that sampling, let me give out koozies. Hey, now I'm on the boat with the koozie, maybe another beer's in it, but oh yeah, I forgot. Now it's a trigger. Hey, that brand was at that liquor store. Let me go back into there. And it's really up to that liquor store owner to really see how it all kind of, again, becomes like a word of mouth chain of sales. You bring in product, hey, we hype it up, but just know, like, now you're going to be on the map as someone that moves craft beer. Or you're known as a liquor store where you just grab your Coronas and you're out the door.
Gotcha.
And that's fine. If you're making your margins and you're doing your thing, then maybe you're happy with that. But we know craft beer, kind of talking about how we were talking about on premise, and hey man, that $8 pour adds up. Craft beer's the same way. People walk out with 4 packs and you could be $75 in the hole right there, versus cool, grab your $12.99, Bud Light. What are your margins? What do you want to make?
Different types of consumer, I guess, too. So there's the store side, and then there's the business. I never thought about that. From like, the margin's going to be pretty reasonable for the stores on craft beer.
Yeah. Again, depending on the tiers that you're working in, because again, if you're in 3-tier, it goes from supplier to wholesaler, and then wholesaler again has bought it, but now there's that markup for them and what they think. Again, here's the suggested UPC price, but they do still have that control. I mean, I've walked into some and I see things like $2, $3, $4 overpriced, and I'm like, man, you're price gouging, and that's why it's not even moving. And that's a disservice to my brand, because you're trying to make more money, but it's not moving because you're in a low income area, maybe, where that bottom dollar doesn't go that low. Usually, again, if it's an independent store, then it's that store owner, and they can see dollar signs sometimes, or they just price gouge. And if a consumer doesn't realize that, like if you walk into a tap room and you see the beer's $10.99 there, and you walk into another store and it's $13.99 there, there's a problem. In my opinion, that's a problem. But
how can that be fixed?
I don't think it is fixable. I think it's the owner has to then realize, why isn't this beer moving? And that's where a rep really will step in, because again, the rep's going to be the one that hears it. Hey, how's your things going? We haven't moved 1 4-pack. Oh, let me check it out. What's going on? Well, it's $14.99 and we're usually $11.99.
So when you sell them the product, do you give them a recommended retail price?
Not in 3-tier. That's coming from the wholesaler.
So the wholesaler gives it to the retailer, and they can do whatever they like. So, okay, quick example comparison from here. There's a system called the LCBO, Liquor Control Board of Ontario. If they basically control all alcohol sales, and if say you get they have like the government run stores all across the province. So say if you get your beer in there, whatever the price is in that store in LCBO, and you sell it from the brewery, it absolutely cannot be any different. If you're $3.95 a
Oh,
can, it has
wow.
to be $3.95 in your brewery. You
It's
can't
a
change it.
standard across.
It's like completely illegal to change that. So that is probably, you're giving a great example why that is a good thing. And then I guess if you don't, because LCBO, if you're just selling it as a brewery, so like a brewery sells it to the independent store that I mentioned earlier called Duran Cafe, who I always shout out here. If he can charge whatever he wants for it. So and because of the LCBO rules, he has to buy it retail from the brewery. He doesn't get a wholesale price. So say the $5.50 a can for a nice hazy IPA, he has to go and add his own. So maybe he'll make it $7 or $7.50 or something like that. And he has to go. It's like if I went there, but then I would have to buy a 4-pack for the most part to go from there. Whereas he's able to buy, like, he buys it by the case, then he's able to sort of move it to whatever he wants, and the brewery doesn't have any control at all, and neither does anybody else, because those products are not in the LCBO system. So there's still, which comes back to your example where it's whatever, but he would have to realize what his market it can stand as far as pricing. And people know, I feel like craft beer people know, like, I don't see, this is another example when you're like, it's $10.99 here, but it's $14.99 elsewhere. Like, if I'm visiting, I don't know. I'm just going to buy whatever's
Correct.
on the shelf. I'm at the place. I don't know that. Like, so you as a
And
consumer,
insert Florida, tourist capital, like everyone's coming in here not knowing. And I've heard people say that. They're like, yeah, it was great, but it was so expensive. And I'm like, where'd you go?
and you're like,
Where'd you
oh,
go? Because
yeah.
again, like, hey, I am a liquor store down by the beaches where all the condos are, and everyone's traveling to. And that's where I saw it mostly, honestly, is you're in these certain liquor stores or these little chains that are down there, and it's, again, insert price, because again, when you're on vacation, you don't look at a price tag in most cases.
No,
You're here to have fun, and again, oh great, Angry Chair's sick. Well, $16.99, but
whatever.
what? Like, to me, looking at it, I'm like screaming at somebody, like, that's not okay. But the buyer, of course, is like,
Right.
So
I wonder, that's fascinating. What I would like, the only like positive sort of flip on that is that I would always try to go directly to the brewery to buy. Look, if I'm in Tampa, it's very unlikely I will go to a liquor store to buy Tampa beer. I'll probably go direct to source.
Yep.
But what I will go to a liquor store for is to try and buy, like when I was in Nashville, I went to the liquor store because I was like, let me see what they get in Tennessee that Western New York doesn't get, which is my typical thing. Let me see what else I can get hold of. And I was able to get, like, I only went to one store, just, how it goes with time. But I was like, cool. They got a whole bunch of different stuff. And I was like pretty stacked up. I didn't have that much space to bring more stuff over the border, but it's always that thing where you sort of want to, like, I'd rather just go to the source wherever I'm at. And then go to a liquor store to buy out of province stuff, and then they out of state stuff, and then you probably can't get that, so that you've got no even comparison there. So it's like, yeah.
And the tap room's an experience though too. Like that's another good thing. Like, being someone in beer, and that, like, I think people that are looking for those products are definitely saying, like, hey, well, I also want to see what the tap room's like and the staff's like, and do they have cornhole? Are there 1,000 kids running around? Do the like, what's the vibe? And like, and again, you get it because you laughed, like, yeah, there's 1,000 kids. There's some places that have, like, the AstroTurf, and they make it a family environment. There's other places, like, again, OG Angry Chair was a bar. Like, you're walking in and there's 25 seats maybe, and half of them are at the bar and half of them are kind of like little tables behind you. There is no room for a kid to run around, like, and it's almost known, like, if you walked in there with a kid, people could be like,
what are you doing? Get out of here.
And maybe there's the point where, like, the bartender or the owner or someone's like, no kids allowed, like, no dogs allowed. So it is kind of interesting how you kind of, like, because I think like a consumer, but I also still have a very heavy rep head. So it's very cool to hear your point on that, of like, yeah, man, we go to that liquor store and we understand that there's product, but sometimes even liquor stores are carrying a lot of core, and they're not carrying those seasonals that might be out. So you go straight to the tap room. Now you're seeing oh wow, there's 15 different beers I can choose from, not the traditional 4 that I would normally get. Cores and staples are amazing, but that's one thing I love about beer over a lot of like the spirits and wine industries, because seasonals are a real thing in beer. There's certain hops that grow at certain times. There's certain malts. There's certain things that make sense. Again, we're not drinking porters on the beach necessarily, but we drink them when we got our 2 weeks of winter in Florida, and that's when people start making those. They start making the porters close to wintertime. Also, we know snowbirds are coming down, and when it's cold, people like those types of beers. So there's a method to the madness, but it is all in all just like knowing the scene and. Again, buying from the right place. If you want to get it from the tap room, I encourage people to go to tap room. Nowadays they have food. Nowadays they have all those different seasonals and beers, but it's an experience. You're meeting local people. You sit to a bar. There's nothing better than, again, I get to travel a lot for conferences, but we try to go to those local places where we talk to people in the industry. Where should we go? And then you meet a local, and then you tell them you're in the beer industry, and it becomes this like, hey, add me on Instagram, and it's like it's a weird thing, but it's almost, I don't know. It's just a really cool part of the beer industry that people don't realize. It's like the taproom culture and the people that you meet in those places as consumers. They're there for a reason, and it's there because they enjoy the beer and they enjoy that culture. And that's really what we want to represent. So.
Couldn't agree more. Yeah. Chris is saying here, St. Pete has one of the most dog-friendly on-premise places to go in the whole US. Thank you, craft brews, for being so dog-friendly. Obviously, we only go to places that are dog-friendly. We have a pup. We bring him everywhere. Our dog has been sitting under more tables at breweries than probably any dog ever, and it's amazing. So also it helps the craft beer scene in St. Pete and Tampa. I agree, and I would also say, because I haven't been there yet, in Miami it was the same deal. We used to see dogs in trade, like people walking through with 2 German Shepherds in Trader Joe's, and it was just awesome. Because you see it here, it's a lot stricter, and I don't like it. It's not that serious. Now I have it. Before having a dog, I was they're all cute, whatever. Now I got one. As long as they're well behaved, like who gives a shit? Bring them everywhere. I think it contributes to that environment that you were just saying. Like people are so much nicer to us because we have a dog and as a cute little guy. Like everyone is so, and you strike up conversation just like you would in a tap room, because people in tap rooms are very. I don't know. It's a very specific thing. If you're in a craft beer tap room, you're not just going to a bar. You've gone to a brewery tap room. It's very different intention. Well, not very different, but it's a highly specific intention. And that means we have this niche hobby in common. And then you can always have these fantastic, where are you coming in from? I'm a local, or I'm from out of town. And it's just like these dope things, particularly for you, I can say, as like a sales rep or in the job you're in now at Lilypad. Like that is just dope. It's super cool, and I feel like dogs contribute to that environment. Once again, if they're well behaved, and you could say the same for kids. I don't mind if kids are there as long as they shut the fuck up and chill and not throwing things and being wild, and the parents are keeping them under control. Like it's cool. I want to see families there.
It's like a restaurant, and that's what breweries are becoming, and they're becoming more restaurant driven. Hey, now we have food, now we have this. So there is an expectation set, like, hey, you don't have to, but again, if you have a big, astroturfed area in the back where the kids can run around and play tag and all that, then it's going to get loud, and you're going to know that as a consumer. If it's your first time there, then hey, maybe that's not my vibe, and that's okay. Go in and get your to-go 6-packs or 4-packs and head out. Fine, you're not going to post up there, but bringing your kid into an actual bar, like a smoky bar, like that's, again, different intentions, different. And again, I think that's kind of evolution of craft. I think craft did that because, again, if you brought your kid into a bar, no matter what time of day it was, that would be, hey man, you might need intervention. There might be a problem here, but not like, it's kind of like your dog. Like my kid used to go on, he was on so many brewery tours, and he was like 2 years old. And I'm like, you've been on more brewery tours than me. Like that's insane. But it's just a cool, again, it's a cooler culture where it's not frowned upon, and I thought about that when we had, we would go in to do like sales meetings and stuff. Like, when do you go to a corporate sales meeting and grab a beer while you're talking about your business? Like you don't. Like we literally sit at a table, drink beer, eat food, and talk about the sales strategy for the next year or the month or whatever we're doing. So that it's just, it's kind of evolved in a different way than a traditional like sports pub or bar that you're going into, which again, bringing the kid in may look a little different than like your friendly brewery that's got dogs and kids, and you can still get hammered,
but like nicely hammered.
Like lightly hammered.
Have you ever seen a
Pinkies up.
fight in the brewery? I've never seen that. Like
No,
everyone's chill
it's not a
because they
Waffle
close
House.
so early.
Yeah, you know.
Shout out to Waffle House.
Mhm.
Micah, do you want to pause for a sec? We'll hit a little bathroom break and then we'll come back and get cruising part 2.
Sounds good.
We'll be back
I
in a sec.
appreciate that.
And we are back in action, sir. Are you ready for the next one?
Round 3.
Hoppy time.
We're doing cold. I grabbed the wrong one.
That's okay. It was I feel like, and look, you might know better than me. I just thought this would usually a cold IPA is a little more chill.
Super crisp and clean.
Crisp and clean, right? I feel like it might be just in case the other one's hazy, which I'm assuming it is.
Check out that artwork. Isn't that artwork
super
sick?
cool.
There's certain breweries that just like they have a staple for their artwork, and this is one of them. So this is Coppertail Brewing, right on that Tampa Ybor kind of line. I would say they're an Ybor brewery. I'm sure their address is Tampa.
It says Tampa here, yeah.
Yeah, but again, Tampa's known, but that's where BarrieHaus is out of, is Ybor. So they're actually collabing. I think today or yesterday they collabed. So they got a beer coming out soon. But I love these guys because I'm a skateboarder. We have a huge skate culture in Tampa, and so these guys will do like their anniversary party. Like they'll pull out like skate ramps, and they'll have like a skate competition. They'll have like metal bands playing in the brewery. Like they just understand the culture, and that's really why I picked them. Shout out to Josh Westenhauser, Westy. He works up there with a couple other people that I know, and they're just like genuine. Again, like our space is so small. I know there's tons of breweries and there's tons of things going on in Bev Alc, but it really is such a small and tight community that if you do anything really wrong to rub somebody, like you can lose your whole business overnight because people won't participate.
Right.
And these are just in my opinion, like Coppertail's just doing it right, and they've just been genuine throughout the whole process. So I hope you enjoy this. I know we're switching gears from
that's great.
Our crispy boys over to our IPAs. But I think they really dial in IPAs and sours pretty well. And then the last one that we'll get to, no spoilers, but I was really hoping to send you a sour from them. They just didn't have the one that I really wanted to send you. So cool, it's another IPA, but
I'm here for it. Oh, this smells great, brother.
Yeah.
Cheers. Get that in you. I hope you're drinking this too, Chris. And this is Evan Benjamin Harris is the label artist, by the way.
And I think they do, like, that's the person that does all their stuff, I'm pretty sure, because they all have that same theme. So I don't know how that works, if they just like buy the art or
keep them on like
something interesting.
Yeah,
it's super cool.
Looks like they're doing okay. So this is called Hop Quest Cold IPA, and it looks like it's like the Hop Quest series where they have it's this rotating showcase of IPAs featuring unique hops and hop blends, which is super cool. I love that.
Across the globe.
From across the globe. Okay, every time I scan it doesn't come up, but let's see. I'm always curious to see what's going on there. I feel like Untapped is a nice. How do you actually, as a that's a quick side a side question. How do you feel either on the Lilypad side or an ex-sales rep side about Untapped? Do you have any sort of strong feelings either way? Because I know it's a bit of a divisive thing.
No. As far as, what do you mean?
As far as like, do you think Untapped's good for the industry? Do you think it's good for consumers?
Yeah, I think it's a cool. I'm one of those people, like I'm a gamer, so if you give me like badges and like something to work for, I'm probably gonna use your app.
Happy.
So kudos to Untapped, and I think it's like next class Ollie Ops. Again, a lot of great people over there. Good people over there. But I think where I think it's bad, and again, just as like a sidebar, because I don't want to be ignorant in any way, but I honestly don't think everyone should be able to rate beer. If you don't know beer, like, and I get you have a palate, but I don't know, man. You see people putting like 1 stars on some really, really good beers, and it's like,
it's pretty ridiculous.
1, you just ruin their rating, and 2, like, what? You're not a seasonal, beer enthusiast. You're just a dude down the road that traditionally, you tried a light beer because you drink Bud Light and that was recommended to you. I think my dad's a great example. My dad, like, I grew up in a household, we didn't have drinking, there wasn't anything like that. Like, there was no social drinking or anything. And then, you fast forward, I'm a beer rep and I'm finally like, hey, Dad, try this amber. Okay, have this Yingling. Okay. And then he called me the other day and he was like, oh, I just got like a 2019. It was like, I forget what it was, but it was like a barrel aged stout.
Okay.
And I'm just like,
How'd you get that,
off.
first of all?
Yeah, you've gone off the rails, brother. Like, we started so nice with the Yingling, and now you're going down this rabbit hole.
You know what? I respect it.
But again, like it's introducing him, and like he had me as a vessel, teaching him those things. Hey, smell it. Activate the palate first. It's not just a wine thing. It's anything. You should smell your food. You should smell anything that you're putting into your mouth. Probably want to smell it to activate that palate to get all the series of sensory flavors that you're going to get out of it. So just teaching him little things like that. Now he's getting better at saying, yeah, this is a beer. But for me to go in and say, ooh, I didn't like this and it's a 1, to me, that could be a disservice to, the people that put their blood, sweat, and tears in it. Yes, there's bad beer. I mean, there's bad beer, there's great beer, there's okay beer. But for you to go in and make that like decision that affects someone's like ranking, for an award that they could win later down the road.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's tricky, but it is a cool source to actually see people. There's people in there that'll say, oh, it's got a gumminess to it. It's got a sweetness to it. And then you start tasting it while you're reading it. And then you do taste it. So I think there's like an educational piece to it. And again, I think the gamification is pretty slick where you can get awards and badges. I have a buddy that travels like all over the US, and the main thing they do is he likes wrestling. So they go to wrestling matches and they just hit breweries, man, and all the brewery events that you can go to. And I was like, a beer rep. I'm like, look at my badges. And he was like, look at my badges. And I was like, geez, bro.
Right, so.
Yeah, it was really cool. But yeah, chill out, Sheriff. He's like a Boy Scout. He's got his like little badges on his, But it's again a conversation starter. We get to see what we liked. I'll never forget one of my favorite. Like I think it was a New England. It was like a hazy IPA. Oh my gosh. It was a Osprey. It was like an Osprey or.
That sounds familiar.
Oh my gosh. It was like my favorite. It was like by far one of my favorite beers I've ever had. My buddy actually had it in his fridge. This is actually kind of aged for a little bit. Yeah, I think it's a seasonal, and I think it comes out every year, but they kind of do like a different version of it. I'm kicking myself right now.
What is it, the brewery you think is called Osprey?
No, that was the beer.
Okay.
And it was a hazy.
Brew York, Grain Store.
Horace? Was it Horace?
Oh, Horace. Okay, let's see. I love Horace. Horace aged ales. I love
Jamie.
There's Horace aged ales called Osprey's Next Catch.
Yeah. Osprey's Fresh Catch.
Fresh Catch.
Yeah. The Fresh Catch. That's it. But it was 2019. 2018, 2019, I can't remember. And I just remember going on Untapped and I was like, I'm so proud. Like, this is one of my favorites. It was just sweet and juicy and it was just so good. And I remember seeing someone's review and it was like, everyone else is giving it like 4.5, like 4.8, like very well recognized beer. And then there was a couple of like 1s in there. And I'm like that's not okay. If the census is in the 4s, like who are you dropping a 1 on? So it was pretty, that's my take on it. But I overall think it's a good thing. I think it's a good thing because it's educational and it raises awareness. And again, like you can do marketing through Untapped. I can get notifications. Hey, these beers are available or these things are going on. It ties to the tap room now where it's on their list. So you get accurate list of like where the product is. And I think there is a lot of good there. I think there's too many goods to outweigh the bad. I
would agree with that too. I'm an avid user on it, and the review thing is like whatever. Like it's like I used to have a spreadsheet to keep track of it, and then I got Untapped, and it's so much easier to know what I've had, and my rate. I do put a rating, but I was talking to someone else about this recently. Some people are so harsh, like they're like, I don't really like Pilsners, but this is the best one I've ever had. 2 stars.
Yeah, exactly. So why are you ranking a Pilsner?
But like, why are you ranking it bad? Or like, I don't like sours, but like, it's just so stupid.
Hey, Untapped. Maybe make a prompt that's do not rank. Like maybe there's a little checkbox that says I don't want to rank it. But here's my opinion on it.
Not. You can actually. I've done it accidentally and put it through before sliding.
Oh,
the
that's
little
cool.
slider.
I think that should be a thing. Like,
Yeah, maybe.
or maybe you have to have so many badges to rate it. You know?
Well, yeah. Well, exactly. Well, that too. Or you have to pass Cicerone or something like.
Yeah.
Rating should be optional. Chris is saying, yeah, I feel like it is. I see some people doing it. I was talking to some dude recently, and he was like, I noticed that you rate everything pretty high. What's the deal? I'm like, well, I don't drink bad beer, bro. Like, I'm relatively well researched, and I talk to a lot of people a lot smarter than me, and I try to figure out to get the best stuff. And I also am aware that I've had breweries tell me they go Untapped has an not unfair, but like a pretty strong impact on their business as far as the types of beers they release and how they release it and all this type of stuff. So if I think I know more, like who is any one of us to, like, kind of what you said, who should be rating beer? Who the fuck is any of us to be saying? Now you could say it like, this is what I think it is based on my scale. Cool. My scale happens to just, I very rarely rate something under 4. Almost everything. Okay, so you and me are very similar.
Yep.
Some dude said that to me recently. I noticed everything's usually between 4 and 4.5, maybe 3.75 if I don't particularly like it that much, when other people would make that a 1.5. And I'm like, I don't know. I've never made beer on a professional scale. This is a very difficult product to make. Like, none of us have any business doing that. I just think it's like, you're a prick.
Good
and
beer is good beer.
Good beer. Well, craft beer is mostly, it's going to be better than the macro stuff.
Yeah.
And good beer is good beer for sure. It's just
if it's
more
out
like,
of code and out of date and you get a skunked beer, sure, but that's not the beer though. Like, that's not.
Correct.
You're trying to skunked beer, and you may not know that it's skunked and the things floating in the bottom are bad. Yeah, like, that's okay.
And that can happen. It could just be a bad can. I've had many bad cans before.
Happens here locally. I was down at a Publix, and one of my favorite breweries, definitely won't name them, but they have a killer pills, and I know their sales team, and I was really shocked to pull even out of a Publix an out of code beer, and it tasted funky, especially a pills. A pills can get very funky, especially on the palate. So it was kind of like, damn, but I'm not going somewhere to review that. Like, it's just like getting a bad dish somewhere. Like, you've maybe had that dish before. This time it didn't come out the way you like it. Okay, but that doesn't mean you just rake them over the coals. Like,
correct.
People make mistakes, but you're no aficionado either. So.
Yeah, exactly. Just be cool. And like, do you want to shit on their business? Do you think you're that good that you have to shit on someone's business? Because if you're drinking from a brewery that this impacts them, there's some breweries that they don't care, but others like kind of live and die by this, unfortunately. And I was about to say often, I would almost say 100% of the time it was not their choice. It's just happened to be that they make hazy IPAs or pastry stouts or smoothies or whatever, and people rate those very particularly. It's just interesting, and I always sometimes wonder, the people who rate things bad, I'm like, how much do you care about craft beer?
Yeah.
Or the people behind them? Do you know the people who own these breweries or work for them? Do you understand how many families are being supported by this business? Like, why would you do that?
The touch is endless. I mean, it's sometimes generational too. It's dad started it, now kids up in it. Like, it's really cool. There's a lot of other pieces of American culture and business, and even Canadian business, where there's like, there's always been restaurants. So there's generational restaurants, and now we're starting to see like generational craft and spirits and beer. And I think that's really cool too, for the ones that can stick it out and they don't get like entrepreneurial burnout or other things like that maybe are kind of showing, we're seeing some beers open and close, but yeah, no, I think there's something to be said, but I think the rating, make it an out of 10 and I won't be in the 4s, because you're giving me out of 5. I mean,
it's it keeps it tight.
3 is a 5 out of 10. You know what I mean? So if I could do a 6, 7, 8, then I might be getting a little bit more honest with my ratings. But yeah,
that's a good point. Actually, that's a really interesting point. But overall, on Coppertail, this is the first beer I've had from them. This is fantastic. I haven't had a cold IPA in a while, but this is great. It's got great malty backbone, lots of citrus, pineapple, super fresh, super bright. It's
Florida, man. Florida in a can, dude.
Florida fucking can. It's almost like, it's got like tons of like, the pineapple. Pineapple is probably the main thing I'm getting here. It's great, man. I love a good cold IPA, and I feel like it's a style. Cold IPAs and brewed IPAs, I feel like they didn't really pick up as much as they maybe should have.
Yeah, agree. And I think like this one, featuring Citra Incognito, El Dorado, which love, and then this, of course,
Strata,
Strata.
right? Yeah,
Staple. So
which is
you get
very
that
cool.
gumminess and that citrusy. Yeah,
Yeah,
lemon, pineapple, zest, strawberry, balanced, crisp, malty boy. Yeah.
yeah, she's a gem, bro. Great choice on this one. So moving on down from this, I feel like we went pretty heavy on all of that. Did you want to touch on any? I don't know if we really sort of did this already, but we had a bunch of things we wanted to make sure we touched on today. Like anything we didn't get to before, whether it was experience with wholesalers or the 3-tier system, because you kind of did speak to that a little bit. Do you feel like you sort of covered that, and do you want to get into some of those like fun stories from the beer rep, or did we have anything else we want to just make sure we threw in there as far as like...
Yeah, I think one thing I would like, again, if you're in the industry, you kind of already know a lot of these things, or if you're looking to get industry, I think, your podcast raises a lot of like educational things. There are jobs like, people, no one told me like going to high school, like you could be a beer rep, you could start a brewery, you could, you know what I mean? You could be a comedian. Like no one tells you that. It's get into finance, get into this, do these things. So I hope, a lot of your audience isn't just like, hey, we're a brewery. They're also people here for educational purposes and
I think
understanding
so.
it. And I think one of the main things that people really should understand is, especially in the 3-tier market, is like we as brewery reps are not the salespeople. So as badly as you may want me in your local store or market or bar or pub, there is a lot of things that are out of control when we get into the 3-tier. Because again, I sell my beer to wholesaler, and wholesaler can put that wherever they want.
Right.
Even if I go to wholesaler and I say, dude, I need it here, it has to go here because people are asking for it, they can walk in and say, nope, we like these people better, or we have an incentive with these people, or we just want to do whatever we want to do. Like that's our draft lines and we'll put what we want on there. And your hands almost get tied sometimes. Now it does give you access to thousands of accounts a lot of the time. And again, in like Florida, you can't self-distro beer. So you're either not distributing or you're going through 3-tier.
Right.
Those are your two options. That's the only thing you get. And again, there's pros and cons to both of those sides. Again, I think one of the cons is like I am not the sales rep. I'm almost a brand ambassador. I'm getting the retailer excited about the beer, so he gets with the wholesaler, and they, make a baby and get an order, and that invoice gets fulfilled, and the product goes on the shelf.
And
That's the life cycle.
The wholesale side, like
Wholesaler distributor.
Wholesale distributor side.
Yep.
So
they're getting with that retailer and they're saying, yep, here's what I want on my order this week, regardless of me visiting that store, regardless of that buyer on the store level telling me, hey, I'll bring it in next week. You know how many times you tell me you bring it in next week and then I walk in and it's not there?
And whose fault is that? Is that the buyer actually? So it could be the wholesaler's not sending it out quick enough, or the buyer actually is full of shit.
Yeah.
So.
And I have to play the game.
Gotcha, because you're going to be cool with everybody. Mm-hmm. So on that note, that makes me think of an interesting thing. So as you just said, that a sales rep on the distributor / wholesale 3-tier system is more of a brand ambassador than a sales rep.
Correct.
How, like, what does the wholesaler do? Does the wholesaler give a sales sheet of 2,500 SKUs that they're currently offering, and then the beer buyer for that, say Publix or whatever it is, or even like a smaller store is like, bro, I don't know, like, and then you've got to go in as a brand ambassador and be like, hey man, like, I'm from this brewery, let's do a bit of a sample, let me show you our stuff, so when the wholesaler comes in, all of these are available, you can order them anytime, we got this one dropping next week. Like, what does that look like? That's
exactly what it looks like. So we're walking in trying to get people hyped, whether it's promising activation. So, hey, you bring it in, I'll come in and do a store sampling. Okay. So I'll sample people as they walk in the store, and that way they can find it on the shelf and pull it, and they've tried it before. Kind of like what we were talking about before with like, hey, I can go into this off-premise account, drink the beer, and then go pull it off the shelf and take it home. That's kind of the same thing as like a liquid-to-lip sampling for consumers. Okay. Hey, you bring it in, I'll be able to support it. But in order for you to bring it in, you have to get with your wholesaler, that rep that calls on that account probably weekly, so they have a relationship, and get it in. And again, by the time that rep comes in, after I've seen them, that retailer's probably seen 20, 30, 40 other sales reps that have done the same game.
Then they get exhausted.
Yeah, I mean, well, they get fatigued because they have all these people in their store. And I think COVID kind of shook up a lot of that stuff, because after COVID, it seemed like a lot of accounts were more like, hey, man, if you don't have to be in my store, like, don't. Like, text or email me or call me. Like, I don't need a ton of reps trying to get shelf space and trying to take up time. Like, I'm trying to sell product, not spend time with you and understand your brands and your cores and sample them and blah, 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 blah.
But if they don't understand that, then how can they sell you?
Well, then they may be okay with what they already have. They may not be looking for any new brands and SKUs because they're already selling enough to pay the bills and they're making good money. So maybe they're like, hey, you know, these brands and SKUs that I already have on the shelf are already moving very well. Why would I add you to the mix? And again, not only am I convincing the retailer to buy the product, but I'm also then having to say, hey, wholesaler, also get the product in the store. And the reason you should is because I'm going to support it with a sampling or a display or with a staff training or something to that matter. But again, a wholesaler can come in and say, cool, great. And then go to that retailer and literally say, I have an incentive with another local beer. They have the same stuff that you're going to request. Can we put that on instead until that incentive's out? So I might even get the boot. True, I might get on next month, but I'm not getting on this month because some other local brewery, someone from the local brewery incentivized the wholesaler to sell their product. Hey, the top 5 reps that sell our brands and SKUs are going to get $1,000. Okay, so then that whole portfolio that the wholesaler has now becomes hyper focused on those incentive brands and not my brands.
Could craft
breweries, I mean the AB InBev group, the Molson Coors group,
they would do it, of course, because they got the money. But like, say, a craft brewery who are barely getting by these days aren't going to be.
You can incentivize reps.
But would they do it in this economy, being that it's like kind of rough?
Well, sometimes they have to. You might have to pay to play. Yep.
So there's that's something we didn't even touch on, was pay to play.
You can't just lay on your back.
I know there's pay to play with bars and restaurants, obviously, you know.
And it's a gray area depending on the state.
Oh, I heard it's big time gray area. Like, I don't know if I've heard anywhere that it's legal personally. You would know way more than me. Is there places where it's like, it's okay to go and say, hey, I'll pay for your fridge, I'll pay for your draft lines, just make sure I get half of the taps?
Like, can't do that. That's the gray area. So that's like, even in Florida, like, you can't have branded coasters. Like, I wouldn't be like, I used to be able to drop off coasters, and it was always told to me, it's a gray area. Like, be careful where you drop off those coasters, you know? And I was like, who cares? Well, because that's favoritism. That's not giving, equal market, or again, insert whatever the reason is, by state.
What about glassware, branded glassware?
Same, all the same.
See, that's ridiculous to me. For example, if I go into a beer bar in Tampa and I order a High Life, I would love a Cigar City coaster and a Cigar City branded glass that is intended by the brewery for me to drink that IPA from. To me, that doesn't feel like favoritism because it's already on the tab. So you're going to be, as a brewery, be like, here's 24 glasses, and here is 2 sleeves of coasters for you to give out. Like, I don't see that.
If you want them, you got to buy them. You got to buy them from the wholesaler.
Got it.
Because that's a legal transaction. I can't give them to you. Like the Stella Artois. Like, if you want a Stella and a Stella glass, you have to go purchase them from the wholesaler. Yeah, that is a transaction.
Chris is saying promotions laws are complex, and part of the reason the 3-tier system exists so that big names are stopped from over promoting and underselling. Okay, makes sense. I get it, but then why, unless you're like OCD, like, and you just want to give, and you really care about beer, and you want, you've got 10 beers on tap, and you've got all 10 of those coasters and all 10 of those glasses, like, why would a bar, just say bars, probably a beer bar is probably the best example as opposed to a restaurant. Why would they, if you got 10 beers and every single time you change the tap out for another brewery, you have to buy a new glass and 48 or 24,
and you couldn't do that. Like, you couldn't do that. And
it wouldn't make any sense, right?
Yeah, what we call it is rotation nation. So, you're on the draft line this week or this month or whatever it is, but that's now gone. The keg blew, it didn't blow, and you're never getting back on, whatever it is. But now you have all this glassware sitting there. So now I'm getting a Cigar City pint in an Escape Brewing mug. Like
Right.
that's not okay. But there's a little bit of that, but to me it's more like making sure there's not necessarily like a monopoly. Like how many times have you walked to a bar and you see like the umbrellas and they say Sierra Nevada or Bud Light or whatever
Oh,
it is? Like
all the time.
those were in a sense purchased by that retailer, by that bar, that restaurant, but they were purchased through the wholesaler, and that wholesaler could have definitely influenced that purchase to say, hey, you bring in X amount of kegs of this month, and we'll throw in, or then there's an invoice. There's probably something happening there as a transaction,
So it shows that there is, but it might be
but it's still a
$10
gray
for a. Gotcha.
area. Could a
Huh.
local brewery get umbrellas done and sell them through the wholesaler, and then the wholesaler sells it to the retailer and they purchase it, and it's the whole thing? Sure.
Well,
But
would they?
again, and I'm speaking Florida law, so
Of course, of course, of course. Everyone's
every
different.
state definitely different. And the laws have
Mm.
probably changed since I've been in the space, so I might not be saying a lot of facts. But
It sounds
it's
right to me.
interesting. It's a weird game. It's a
Yeah,
weird game in
man.
3 tier.
Yeah, interesting. I'm thinking here as well because I've heard stories from brewery friends in Canada that tell me stories about the bar. And they'll try to get in a bar and they're like, sorry, like Molson paid for our entire tap line, which they're not allowed to, but they'll just tell a brewery, like,
Yeah.
sorry, I have to have 8 of my 10 taps have to be all of their brands. And it looks like the illusion of choice, as well, all the different brands that are owned by that. It's different here than there, but same concept. And then now there's like 2 taps available for craft, and they're like, oh, I'm kind of mates with this guy, so I'm going to keep this on. Like, it's it seems like a bit of a dirty game and a bit of a it's like, yeah, so many breweries fighting for so few tap lines. It almost seems better to just focus on bringing people in premise or to buying the off premise. What you're talking when I say in premise, I'm meaning the tap room,
The tap room.
and
Yeah.
and then bringing people to the off premise that you described earlier, so that people can go and get the cans to go, whether it's from grocery or independent liquor stores or wherever.
But sometimes that on-premise pint, like we kind of said earlier, I can pay $6-7 for a pint. Now I know I like it, then I will go find it on the off-prem. Versus me going into the off-prem and looking at a $14.99 4-pack
It's a good
and
point.
being like, ooh, is it worth the risk because I'd never had it and I don't know if I might like it.
Unless it was a single can, because if it's a single can, I'll roll the dice. Because a craft beer single can, I don't know. I paid something the other day in Nashville, like $3.99 for something,
Mhm,
and the guy was like, "Are you sure? Like, are you cool with this price?" I'm like, "Bro, like, it's okay. I know what I'm getting myself into. Like, we spend absurd amounts of money on this shit. Like, $3.99 is actually a bargain, even if it's
Yeah.
US.
I'm here for it.
Yeah, it's
That's a $7 pour at a pub.
a minimum. And once again, even with the 30% increase, being the Canadian dollar is 30% less than the
Mhm.
US dollar, I'm like, it's okay. I signed
Steal.
up for this. I know what I'm doing. I want that. It's okay, bro. Thank you for telling me. But yeah, so I imagine that he's like, just saying. Sometimes people get a bit mad about the prices. I'm like, well, if you buying craft beer and you're getting mad about the prices, you're in the wrong game. It's
Agree.
just a more expensive, higher quality product, and it is what it is. Chris, I just want to make sure I mention this before we move on from this. He said the 3-tier system for alcohol distribution in the United States was established after Prohibition's repeal in 1933. 33. This system is designed to ensure a balanced and regulated market for alcohol, with each tier playing a crucial role in preventing abuses and promoting social responsibility. That sounds like the wiki thing there, which is very handy. Thank you, Chris.
But
So
what's interesting about that is that's one and something that happened in 1933. When how many breweries were there in 1933?
probably 4.
So now
Nationally.
even if you went back to 2010 when there was only
Yeah.
1,000 breweries. Again, don't fact check me.
What are we at? Like
But
12K now in the US, I think.
what was that?
How many breweries in the US now? I think it's 12K.
Oh, it's so.
Jamie,
Last time I heard was
let us know,
10. It's
Jamie.
probably at
Yeah.
12 now.
Jamie can tell
Um,
us.
but again, like it's yeah,
Yeah.
sorry, you can come over whenever. But it's just one of those things where it's like that's an old school way of looking at a market that has again, you have like a 5-barrel tap room down the road for you that makes some of the best liquid ever, but you'll never find it in distro. Because again, insert, hey, I don't want to sign with the distributor. I like having control. In 2022, there was 9,700. So yeah,
I heard
easy to
12K
say.
somewhere, but maybe that was a boost. Interesting.
Yeah, and that can include, outside of beer. Now there's RTDs, now there's non-alc. I mean, there's so many different things that you can
That's
put
right.
into what brew is. Kombucha's brew,
Wow.
So you could do something like that. But yeah, so I think there's a few cons to the 3-tier system, and I think a lot of people agree with, hey, we as a brand don't have control over where it goes, because again, the wholesalers walking in with 400, 500 SKUs. How are they highlighting my brand? I may walk in there every week hoping to get a commitment, but as soon as Bob, the wholesaler rep, walks in, he really actually does have majority of the control, so it seems.
Yeah.
So you do get your hands tied. Now, where are the pros? I think the pros are like getting the whole market. Like, we already know these wholesalers are in thousands of accounts and thousands of stores, so we actually get a nice blanket. I mean, if you're buying Bud Light, it's probably in every store that can possibly sell alcohol. So having the ability to capture that audience is great. Now I just need to make sure that I'm being a good enough rep, and this is where I say it puts it more on the rep, because not only is the rep responsible for the relationship with the again, the on or off premise account, it's also with that distributor rep. So it's sometimes like I would show up to other breweries. Yeah, like those reps are in the streets every single day. Usually every week they're in the same accounts filling in orders.
From
Hey, how many
multiple breweries, though,
for
because
every brewery in their portfolio?
that's right.
But it all starts with, again, like AB and Molson Coors in most cases.
Of
Like,
course.
they're
And
going
then
in
you
to make
buy
sure you got your Bud kegs, you got your Miller kegs, you got everything that you need, you got your shock top, whatever it is. But then also, hey, what do you need in craft? And again, craft has a big portfolio now, but only maybe 4 or 5 people are going to get the recognition. And the reason they get recognition, in my opinion, is because that boots on the ground rep for the wholesaler is actually mingling and hanging out with that brewery rep.
Gotcha.
That's where the relationship is. So that was half of my job. Half of my job was kind of how we started this conversation. Wake up, figure out what accounts you need to go into, walk in, sell solar, right? Knock on the door, awkward, until you get in there, build that relationship, or see them out and about. Or I never told my wife this, but whenever I got new purchases, like, I would take her out to dinner. And then it was cool because you get treated like a mob boss. Give them the mozzarella sticks for free. That's our beer rep. It was cool. And I hope she can't hear me say that. But but it's really cool because you get to meet the owner. You get to talk to everybody, and you're kind of the celebrity almost. But again, that's working within that 3-tier. It's, hey, yeah, retailer, we built a relationship, but I also need to go and show up to other brewery events that my wholesaler rep is putting on. I did that a lot, and that helped me meet a lot of other reps in the industry, which helped me kind of have the friends that I have today in the space, which is really cool. But it's also kind of like, hey, I'm scratching your back by showing up to this event. Now, when I have an event,
my product, and
you need to do that as well. Hey, let's go hit some golf balls over the weekend. You're almost like forcing yourself to be friends with someone because they have control over where your brands are going. But to be honest, a lot of beer reps are actually really cool, and they're just like you. You get some old school guys that, hey, I've been doing this territory for 20 years. If they want it, they'll buy it. Okay, man, chill out. Like, sorry, I sent you an email. But then a lot of the younger and middle-aged dudes are very much like, hell yeah, man. You want to go grab lunch somewhere? Yeah, this is one of my favorite accounts, and I'll introduce you. Okay, great. Now I have that introduction. But if you're not playing that game, if you're not playing the game and you think that you just have really good liquid and it's going to sell, you might be doing yourself a disservice, because you got to play on both sides.
I imagine
it's like double dutch.
Yeah, totally, bro. Thank you for breaking that down. I feel like this is painting such a phenomenal picture of what it really looks like. It's almost like, as you were saying that, I could picture like if like the wholesaler rep, if you and the wholesaler rep, he's like, yeah, let me take you out to he or she take you to a fucking his favorite account. So, and introduce you, then they're going to see you with them and automatically, oh, they're really pushing this brewery now. So it's almost like their presence makes you as the brewery direct rep more important or more impactful there, and they're going to maybe listen to you and give you a bit more time of day if that particular wholesaler rep, which they get all of their beer from, is co-signing you, and maybe not all of the other reps are doing that with you.
They become an advocate for me as a rep. And that was one of the things I really pride myself on, was like, hey, not only am I associated with this brewery, but I'm also an individual. Like, I'm a human being that has a job. And I'm a really, I don't know how to say that, but like, I feel like I'm a really cool human being that you would like to get to know. And we can do things as friends and as people, but also coexist in the 3-tier space to where you sell my alcohol. And that was huge. Like, distributor ride with is a big core thing that people focus on from a brewery standpoint, because they want to make sure you're mingling with those reps that are actually selling the product. Now, how do you bump yourself up there? It is by going to those events. It is by, scratching their backs. I had an account in Clearwater. The seal on a keg broke, and he's a breakfast joint that moves a lot of beer, actually, which is really cool because he's in a tourist location. And when that thing broke, I mean, I'm getting a call at 7 a.m. My brewery's flooded, or my restaurant's flooded. And I was like, what do you mean it's flooded? And he goes, the keg blew. And I was like, what do you mean the keg blew? And he's like, I don't know, but there's a whole keg of beer sitting in the bottom of my floor, and we open in 30 minutes. So I was like, okay, let me get in my car and go problem solve that. But at the end of the day, that's the wholesaler's problem. That's not my problem. Now I'm still the rep of the brand, and that's my friend, so I'm going down there to help him. But realistically, that keg's getting replaced by the wholesaler. That refund is coming from the wholesaler. Like, all those things are impacting that rep that calls on the accounts on the wholesale level and the wholesaler entity itself.
So if you went down there, that's doing them a solid, and they're going to treat you better because you
had a
jumped out
mop.
of bed.
I had a mop, and I cleaned it up, and I made sure by the time he opened up, we were good to go. And not only,
And
mind you,
replace
that
the keg, I imagine, too.
well, no, that has to come from the wholesaler. I can't just go to my brewery and grab a new one. That's super illegal. You can't do that because it has to go through 3-tier. There has to be a refund then on an invoice or something showing that that's been replaced. So that just doesn't get until he takes his next order, or I call that distributor rep and say, hey, can you swing one over here for me? And again, that's why that relationship is so important, because I do not get to handle my own beer. I don't get to touch my beer
at all.
Don't get to handle it.
Wow.
I can give samples. I can go and sample you, but
you
I can't. Once you buy it, I can't.
It's got to go through them. That comes back to what Chris what Chris was saying before. Interesting. He also said, just to make that clear, he also said there's 14,597 breweries in 2023, according to Tax and Trade Bureau. Not all are operational or open, so there's probably a decent amount, maybe like 500 to 1,000 would be my guess, ones that are in planning or maybe got some permits approved. He also said the payment laws within 3-tier are also very complex state by state, which FinTech helps automate with that as well, which is the where Chris getting a lot of these from. That's fucking crazy.
Thanks, Jamie.
Yeah, Jamie, I love it. It's the best. It's so good. So I know we're talking. One of the things we would definitely want to touch on, was there any like, now you've actually, because when I was seeing this, basically for people who don't know, we were, when we do these business of beer episodes, we plan out the topics with the guests. We really like a bit more thoughtful because we want to be covering certain things. And one of the things we have here is some of your fun stories from some of these ridiculous things. And I think that would be dope to get into at this point, now that you've really qualified how it works. And I felt like I didn't understand all of this. I needed this conversation to really get like how this works and why it works certain ways. Now I'm like, oh, this is what you're talking about with the schmoozing and the blah blah blah. Completely have a different like understanding of everything. So thank you, both of you guys, so much for this. This is great. So if you got any of those fun ass stories, something I imagine from what we're chatting about, they're pretty ridiculous. Something, let's get some jokes here.
Yeah, we'll lighten it up a little bit. Again, it goes back into that, like, the key phrase here is awkward, and you get into some very awkward conversations because, again, all these different retailers and even wholesaler reps that you're getting with, like, a lot of those wholesale reps know of events going on. And if you want to be a part of that event, then you need to be pouring at that event. So you need to
Okay.
be in the establishment with your beer on tap, which is great. That's why we love events. That gets us in the door. But some of those events pull you into different directions. So one of my favorite stories, one of my first favorite stories is, we do samplings on the off premise. So we'll
Mhm.
get into like, I'll shout out Lucan's, which is a local liquor store. They're like a local chain, but
Good.
they have a lot of good selection. They actually genuinely care about what beers they bring in, spirits they bring in, which I always appreciated. But I remember being in Lucan's and I was doing a sampling, and the area I was in was a very old demographic. So again, you got your retirees or your snowbirds and things like that. And I'm just very friendly and outgoing with people. Hey, would you like to try a sample? Would you like to try a sample? And this old sweet, well, looked old and sweet lady walked up, and I was like, hey, would you like to try a sample? And she goes, I don't think you're old enough to do that. Now, as you can tell, I've shaved a little bit, but I'm in my mid 30s, and at the time I was in my 30s. I was 29, 30, somewhere around there. Yeah, she went to the manager and asked for me to get carded at my own sampling. And he came over and actually carded me to make her happy. And I went up to her like after that because I felt like it was a good thing. Like I'll never be mad if someone wants to card me. That's amazing. That's great. It
Right.
means
Yeah.
I'm looking younger than I am. Fantastic. But I remember her leaving and I said, I hope you have a good day. And I kind of walked up to go give her a hug and she like pushed me back. And she was like mad that I was actually not underage and that she caught me. So it's weird, right? Like I thought this was playful and fun, and she was like seriously trying to make sure that I got carded, and if I wasn't of age, that I was escorted off the property.
Jeez.
Yeah, it was really, really strange. And I hope, again, I never know what someone's going on in their life. I have empathy first with people, so
Of course.
maybe there's something heavy going on in that person's life. But
Hope
I
she
always find
can.
that kind of funny, like having a baby face. People
Yeah.
were definitely like,
In beer, right?
are you old enough to do that? And I'm like, haha, thanks.
Yeah.
But yeah, I am. I mean, I'm well overqualified. So
You like
that
a
was
gray
one.
mustache or something.
Yeah. That was one really good one.
That's awesome.
I've done some weird ones where like I remember one guy. I don't know how I got this. Oh, I like that. Like a
Unintentional. Worked out well.
gong.
A little ding.
Story time. Ding. Um, I think there was another good one where I don't know, someone really rich. I wound up at someone's mansion with like two or three other breweries and some other food vendors, and it was like when you go to like a beer festival and everyone has their table set up and they're sampling and people walk around and sample it and stuff. It was like that, but it was like on someone's pool deck in their mansion. And there was like 7 of us in different companies and breweries and restaurants. And there was like, I remember it being like industry specific people. Like there were some people that owned restaurants that were there, but it was like people's families. There was like 5 or 6 families and their kids. And like, we were just standing on these people's like pool patio with like,
Like
hey, how's it
table thing.
going? Would you like to try some beer? And then we stood there for like 3 hours until someone walked by. And again, there's like 25 people in this house, maybe like that don't care that we're there. So, so we all just started hanging out and like drinking with each other, like sharing each other's beers, and like, so we made it our own party at a time. But then it was time to leave, and it was almost like it's really, really awkward because they were like, there was no set time. Like a restaurant closes
They
at
like wrap
11.
it up or
This is someone's house. So they were kind of like, all right, we're done. And we're like,
like okay.
what? Okay, yeah, it was so awkward and weird. And then I wound up making friends with, of course, the house of the owner and stuff. So they're like, but you can stay. And I was like,
All right.
no,
Yeah.
I gotta go. Like I know, because I was like, if you're not inviting everyone else, like I'm not, like.
That's true. It's kind of weird.
It was so weird and awkward. And then again, you're like packing up your table and you're getting your samples and you're getting ready to like head out and bye children, bye families, it was so weird. Yeah, it was really, I think it was like, there was something charity involved in it too, but it was just like I'm in someone's house in Dunedin, like it was very, very weird. And then again, just insert awkward. This one's fun. You ever done a sampling at a nudist colony?
Not personally, but I'm here for it.
So I
Did you
had
have to be nude?
We're getting there. So spicy. Someone needs to do like a thumbnail of me
Look,
in like a speedo.
send that photo.
Yeah.
Make it happen.
But so they were a big account, and again, using something like Lilypad, which I was using at the time as a beer rep, I was able to go in and say, hey, show me people that have bought over the last 30 days, because again, there was already sales reps in front of me that sold, but I'm new into that role, so I was kind of like making sure I picked up where I left off, which insert tech to help do that. So I went, and again, I'm born and raised in this area. I was very familiar with this place because again, we talked about it as kids, like everyone's just naked, and with my background of being like, my family was pretty religious, like that is like taboo, right? It's so taboo. So I get to the security gate, I'm like, hey, I'm the rep for this brewery, coming in to check on the beer. Great, go on in, you'll just park. And I parked, and you like walk up this little corridor, and you get up there, and the first thing I see is just this dude completely butt naked, like, he had it all going on. He was well off, in more ways than none. And I'm just like, I'm looking like chest up. I'm just like, eyes are locked on, but the peripherals are catching everything. They're like, you can't escape the peripherals. So it was very much like that was like my intro. And then you walk in, and there's a metal detector for some reason. So I'm the only one like actually unpacking, because everyone else is just like walking through because they're naked.
Rude.
Yeah, they're completely naked, and I'm like unbagging myself and getting my book bag off and like going through. I walk in, and I'm like trying to find the chef, because that's the main buyer. I see my friend who I've known for like 10 years. He's a cook there, which didn't even know. So he's like, you want a tour? Sure, let's get a tour. So now I'm like touring this whole like facility, and it's just naked people everywhere. Of all ages. So it's just like, it was just the craziest thing ever. Fast forward.
Okay, no, you go. I won't ask. Go on.
Fast forward like 2-3 months, I actually lined up an event with them, and it was an event because the chef actually ended up getting cancer, which from my understanding he beat. So I think everything's good. But they were like, hey, we want to do a fundraiser. They moved tons of my beer. Like, we were like the main craft beer that they pushed. So I was like, absolutely, I'm here for it. My first time that I was just talking about was just a walk around. It was just meeting the buyer, walk around, cool. This was more like, hey, everyone that lives here, because this is a living community. This isn't like, hey, you just post up here. This is like
a beach or whatever. Like,
there's apartments all throughout this property that people retire on or live on. They have golf carts. They just drive their bare butts on their golf carts to the pool. It's a 2-story pool. They got tiki bars. It's massive. It's a massive facility. But now you pack 500 plus people that are all naked. And I'm sitting there. It's so serious. And I'm sitting there with like a booth sampling naked people, and again, and I'm clothed. So you're getting hit on by guys, you're getting hit on by girls, you're getting hit on by others, like just every kind of lifestyle is there. And it's a beautiful thing. It's incredible. But it was something that my brain was not understanding of. Right. And I joke with my wife today. I'm like, I'm going to retire there, because I started going there and I was like, this is insane. And then by the end of it, I was like, this is actually a free way to live. Like, these people,
they
just
chill.
Live their best life. They drink beer, they drink alcohol, they jump in the pool, they hang out naked. Like, I was like, what is going on?
Is there like, are they 20s or are they all like 50 plus type of thing? Like
everything. I think the majority of people who live there are in their 40s plus. But it's like, and there's a respect to it. Like, there's a whole culture to it where it's not like weird.
They're not weird about it.
It's not weird at all.
I've heard that.
They're normal. And that was like the whole thing that resonated with me. I was like, this is crazy. But again, like, I'm just a rep trying to sell beer, and I'm standing in front of 500 naked people trying to get them to buy products at the pool.
Right. And you're the only closed person, probably.
I was the only closed. And what's funny is my boss, who was very familiar with like the area and stuff, he said, promise me one thing. And I've never seen him more serious in my life. Please leave before nightfall. And I was like, why? And he goes,
you don't want to.
Please just leave before nightfall. And I always, every time I was there, I've always left before nightfall.
So you don't know what happens after nightfall?
Oh, I've heard stories. I've had brand ambassadors not leave after nightfall. So I've heard stories.
So when we wrap up, you're going to tell me?
I can tell you.
Okay.
It gets wild. Using your imagination will get you there. But that's
I
just
gotcha.
like that. Those are things that
Eyes
people
wide
just
shut.
really, yeah, those are things that just people really don't understand. It's like
Huh.
we are still human beings that have to put ourselves into, unique scenarios in order to get a sale or to keep the
Mm.
account. Because again, if I didn't do that, who would come in? I had, I think, 4 SKUs even throughout seasonal rotations where those people were selling, a good 100+ CEs of my liquid a month. Because we were the craft. Everything else was AB and other things, and the people there loved, IPAs and other things to get drunk and have a good time.
Right.
So it gets weird, it gets awkward, but it's really, really fun, and you get to explore parts of your cities that you would never ever have access to. I've been on
Huh.
golf courses, and I'm like, I will never play golf here, and I get to play because I'm on draft, and I made a relationship with those people, and they get me on the links for free. Um,
Mm.
but it's weird getting there sometimes.
Easily. That's amazing. I never really thought about like beer reps having insane stories like that as far as the access and but it makes complete sense that there's going to be situations when you are the one in charge of sort of, if you're on draft then like, hey, we need you to do this sampling, and sometimes these sampling events are
They
outside of
go,
the norm.
yep, they get a little out of hand,
I mean,
but it's fun.
it's a net positive. It
It
sounds
is.
like
It
it's
really
like
was.
kind of weird, and I almost feel like it's like you did it for the story,
Yep. Yep, absolutely.
and you've
And
got people.
even there, like there was fast forward, I did another event there because I just couldn't get enough,
The
and they
nudist
did like
place?
drag. They did a drag bingo.
Okay.
So they're like doing drag bingo, but again, everyone's naked, so people are like
Even
bingo,
even the
and
drag people?
no.
No, they're not nude. So the performers are nude, but the people are, and they got bingo, and there's just bowls and
It was just insane, man, seeing people, and then they would like walk back to me again. This is at night, like we're talking about, like at
like
nighttime in like a conference room, and there's all these just
indoors. I'm
naked
picturing it
people.
outdoors.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
no. This is like no. This place has like a fine dining restaurant. They have an Irish pub. They have a gift shop.
But it's all
Like
nude.
it is, but it's all nude, brother.
Bartenders are nude?
Most of the staff is clothed.
Do they find it weird? Is
But
it
but
like
no, they know. Like again, my buddy was a cook there, and he's like cooking stuff and taking out mozzarella sticks to the, like you
to
just
the
know what you're getting yourself into. But it's
right
interesting. But it's like a whole commune.
culture?
Yeah,
Yeah.
man.
So communes, that's very different. Is it like
Yeah.
hippie or something, I guess?
I thought it was like free love and hippie, but these, I mean, again,
But
like
it's
even me
probably
having like an
professional people.
epiphany, absolutely.
Just
They did their
normal.
time in the rat race, and this is where they want to rest their head, and they just want to have a good time living free. And I
Interesting.
and I thought that was really cool. But I would have never been brought into that world if I wasn't selling beer, because there's no other opportunity other than someone inviting you there, which would be even weirder if one of my homies was like, "Hey, you want to go to Nudist
Yeah.
Colony?"
It'd be like, no, bro.
Yeah, I don't know if we're that cool, bro.
I don't know if anyone's
Um,
that cool.
but I'll go for work.
Sure, as long as you don't have to bust it out. If you're
Yeah,
not cool with
and
that.
and people, a lot of people pushed me. A lot of people
Come on,
were
man.
yeah, yeah. But it was a really good time, and but
Oh,
again,
I
like
can
that's
imagine.
the life of a rep. I mean, we get into some
Yeah.
weird situations, and
Jeez.
I feel even worse, not to like change, the tone, but like women beer reps. I mean, that does not get talked about enough
Mm,
because drinking does make people different. And whether you want to call it courage or disrespect or whatever, but people can get out of line with female reps. And I've heard it because
I
we
bet.
used to have some awesome female reps, and they're telling me these stories, or they're calling me and they're like, "Hey, can you come to this event? Just please come to this event." So,
Yeah.
I don't have to deal with these people. And it could be patrons, it could be wholesaler reps, it could be the bartenders and owners. Um, but there is another side that can be a little, dark, and it's unfortunate,
That
but you got
does
to look
suck.
out for your own. That's
No,
one
you gotta
thing that
look out for your people. Yeah, man.
we made that very clear. If you ever feel weird or awkward or anything, you tell us their name and we'll figure it out, because it's a zero tolerance. And I
That's
think you
good.
saw that a lot through the past 5 to 10 years. A lot of people kind of came out like, hey, these people aren't treating people right, and these people aren't, and there's racism, and there's, and I that's what I love about beer, is there's an accountability. Like we are very much like we're going to hold you accountable. It's as many breweries as there. What did we say there was 14,000 or something licenses? Yeah. Like we're all watching each other's back, and we will make sure that if you're not following the standards of being a good human, we'll let the world know. And so, yeah.
That's great. I've heard from other female beer rep friends. They've said that a lot of people question then, like, aside from all the things you're talking about, so that, but also more like, you know, maybe less insidious but equally offensive things, like questioning their knowledge. Like, I was like, oh, what do you know, love? Why don't you tell me about the fruited sour that you drink or whatever? You know, like some bullshit.
It's like cars. Women can't know anything about cars.
Yeah. I know we've had women on the podcast who know so much more about beer than any dude we've ever had.
Than me. All day.
It's crazy. It's so ridiculous that in 2024 that you would think that anyone based on gender or sexuality or race or whatever would not know enough about beer. Like, shut the fuck up, man. Like, I like the zero talk. I like that a lot. I like hearing that from you, man. Like, it's cool.
And you see it. I mean, even other people in the alcohol space will cancel someone. Like, we will cancel you so fast because,
if you're
again, don't be an asshole. Don't be a dick, and treat everyone with respect, and we'll all be good. But that doesn't happen in all industries, and that's super unique to like the alcohol space.
Yeah.
There is a no tolerance. So
I don't love cancellation, but sometimes it's warranted, I guess.
Yeah. No, and I agree. I think, hey, if you know that you made a mistake and that was a public mistake, and you want to atone for that, and you want to change things, and you want to get new ownership or fire someone, whatever it is, great. But again, alcohol
change
things come out of us, you know. Things come out, and I'm a jokester. I like to always think that, but like you have to understand your audience sometimes and know that, hey, like, that's a funny joke maybe here, but dude, no, like that's not tolerable. Let's talk about it. Are you okay? You know, like totally. That's the other thing is having, people that are around you to help you get through that. So not to get a funny nudist story and then bring that up.
And then bring it. Hey,
I think it is a very important part of our industry.
Couldn't agree more, man. I think we got to be real at the same time as we can be funny. So I want to get into that the last beer in a sec. I believe I have unintentionally broken the seal. So if you are down, take a quick, real quick pee break, and then
it's a real thing.
It is a real thing, and it doesn't always happen, but it seems like tonight the seal is broken. And then we got one more fantastic beer, and we're going to talk about like tech in sales as well, because I think that's the next thing. I think you've painted the groundwork, and sorry, Chris, because I know we're keeping you up late. It's already midnight. I don't want to go too much longer because I want to respect you guys' morning. Chris is here for it. Let's fucking go. All right, everyone.
Let's go, Jamie.
Go party. Jamie. And we'll be back in a sec, yo. Alrighty, we are back. Oh, where did Micah go? Oh, there he is. Hey, buddy.
Just hopping around on my Lilypads.
Ooh, I like what you're doing there. Just picking up the new beer, I guess, is what you were doing there.
Yeah, actually, I should have done that. Yoink.
I just noticed here, a little LFG at the top. Love that. So this is one of the coolest beer names I've seen. A hot dog is most definitely a sandwich.
Controversial.
Controversial. I think it is. Do you think it is?
Ooh, I'm a foodie, man, and I don't. I think it's a type. I think it's a type of bread.
Okay.
Influences if it's a sandwich or not, because that's a hot dog bun.
So what's the taco argument? Is a taco supposed to be called a sandwich too?
It's a tortilla. It's not a loaf of bread. You know what I mean? Like you're not. I don't.
Chris, what do you think, Jamie?
Look it up. No. But that's why it was funny, because I went to all these breweries and got beer, and I talked to the bartenders and some of the owners about these beers. And this was one that the bartender there, he was very much like, oh, this will be controversial for like a podcast, because it is a hot dog, a sandwich.
I love it.
What entails a sandwich. But the reason why I went here is Hidden Springs is very, very well known, very popular. I'm sure it's been brought up in conversations, hopefully, while you're talking to people. They're a sour house. Like, they make some of the best sours. There's people that line up around the block for these people's sours, and they release them.
Or are they
What was that?
barrel aged smoothies? Or
No,
like barrel aged?
all the above, man.
Okay,
They make all kinds of good stuff.
then.
But I mean, I see it like I'm in, Facebook groups where they're like, "Hey, anyone got Hidden Springs this, and I'll give you some Treehouse." Or
Oh, fuck
like
yeah.
people are just going. AI says a hot dog is a sandwich. LOL.
There you go.
All right, thanks,
ChatGPT
Chris / Jamie. Greatly appreciate it. But why I really picked these people was not because they have incredible sours and incredible things. I was actually trying to send you a sour. We got their IPA. It looks like it's with Galaxy and Strata hops. They
Yes.
make incredible liquid. You're never going to be disappointed. But they do have a sour that's called Because of Ezra. And
Okay.
it's kind of near and dear, as I have a kid, and a lot of people have kids, of course. But Ezra was a child that was diagnosed with cancer. Unfortunately, Ezra has passed at a young age due to cancer. But Hidden Springs makes a beer because of Ezra, which is the 501c. I encourage everyone to check it out. Very, very good cause, just shining light and educating people and helping people that have kids that are going through this. But they do make a beer, and the proceeds go to that foundation. So I was in there hoping to get it. Of course, they were sold out of it, which is great. But this is second best. So again, not necessarily known for their IPAs, but they make everything great. Josh, the owner, and really a man of everything over there, just crushing it in everything he does. But the whole intent was that 501c is very near and dear, and yeah, I really wanted to get that beer to your lips, but we got this instead. But still, shout out Because of Ezra. Really good stuff there.
Shout outs to Ezra. Cheers, brother.
Clink.
Cheers to hot dogs being sandwiches.
Oh man, that's a thick boy.
Yeah, this is great.
I could chew it.
Yeah, this is awesome. 7%, creamy. It's dank, piney, a little like lots of nice citrus, probably some mango in there, pineapple. Yep.
But you said dank, like dank. It's almost like a New England.
It is a New England for sure. This is a hazy for sure. Look at that. I thought it was an American IPA according to Untappd, but this is undoubtedly a New England IPA. Yeah, wicked body. It doesn't have a date code. That is one thing I love to see is a date code, just so you know what's up. But this tastes fresh. This doesn't taste like it's old or anything.
Oh, I got it straight out the brewery.
Okay, so
everything is straight from the brewery.
This is like people are checking. Yeah, let me see how people checking into it. 31st. Yeah, yesterday. People checking in yesterday and stuff. So it's definitely only a few weeks old at most. I guess I picked this up a couple weeks ago. It's this is great, dude. This is fantastic. Hidden Springs. This is for me as well. This is super fun to discover a whole new beer, a whole new brewery.
Yeah, and they're just again they're great, great people over there with Josh and team, and the artwork. Like their artwork has always been this way, so it kind of goes back to like the Coppertail, how they have a specific artist. Like these guys have always had this like style on their cans where it almost looks like a tattoo sleeve, and I appreciate that tying in kind of like tattoo. It's kind of like what Sailor Jerry did, in like alcohol and pin up and other things like. You're kind of getting that from Hidden Springs where they have these kind of like tattoo sleeve cans, which of course we know a lot of us have tattoos and alcohol.
A lot of people do. It's very popular for some
really cool
reason.
And you see like he's it's like he's at the table with a sign.
Yeah, like the meme.
The guy. Debate me.
It's also International Beer Day, it seems, according to Untappd. I think yesterday, because it's after midnight now. Yesterday was International IPA Day.
Oh,
and
here
then
we are.
Today on this is Friday, August 2nd, is International Beer Day. So
well, happy festive.
Yes, for all of us. Yes.
Cheers,
legends. Yeah, this is fantastic, bro. Loving this. Ooh.
It's really cool because I usually work backwards. I'll usually go like heavy and then end on pills, or something like. But I love that we came into it. But I need a palate, like, hey, give me a bunch of water to cleanse the palate from the IPAs.
I would normally do a full, during the pod, I don't because it's not practical and you got to piss a lot, but I would have like a full glass of water, sparkling water in between every beer. And I find that makes the hangover less and it just cleanses your system a little more. The only downside is the extraordinary amount of CO2 in your system. So I find that there's a bit of, gas overnight.
Burp.
But
Yeah.
well, gas here, gas there, and but it doesn't smell. I was talking to a mate about it today. Like, if you have a lot of like carbonation in beer and then carbonation in the water, I find I'm just fucking fighting all night. But it
Yep.
doesn't smell. It's just like you
No.
just got gas in your stomach and you're just pushing it out. It's hilarious.
All that carb.
So this is no, but I just want to give you props for the phenomenal selection of Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay, is that fair to say? I don't know why I said that.
That is Tampa. That is strictly
Tampa.
Tampa. Yep. Tampa
Yep.
Bay. If I was bringing in over some like Green Bench or again some of those other guys that are over
That's
there,
Tampa Bay. Understood.
that would be like Tampa Bay, St. Pete. But
but
yeah.
Tampa itself. So Tampa, Florida breweries.
Politics. But these
No,
are
thank you. Thank you for educating me.
Tampa.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much, because I want to know. But man, honestly, this is what a journey. This is a phenomenal journey of, Crispies and now different types of IPAs and stuff, and just seeing like these are all like A1 fucking phenomenal beers from all exceptional breweries. So I'm excited to explore more of all this stuff in Tampa. So thank you so much as well for curating that. Yeah, we should definitely talk and get you some stuff from up here too. Do a little trade skis and get you some Canadian stuff. And since now it's nice and easy, get you and Chris some good shit. We got some great stuff out here. So here for the Tampa stuff. So the next phase of what we want to talk about, I feel like you've really laid a phenomenal groundwork of really just all the aspects of the life and times of a craft beer sales rep, whether it's the wholesaler distributor side or the independent side, and restaurant bar versus a store, and then grocery store, independent store, liquor store, all that stuff. So one thing we haven't really touched on so much is sort of the tools of the trade that craft beer sales reps really have at their disposal to make their life a little easier. Because if we come back to the original questions where I'm like, how do you decide what to do, and how do you know who to talk to and what to do? So I'd love to just sort of run down from your side, like the general, like high level types of tools that you have available to to make a craft beer sales rep's life a little easier.
Yeah, I mean, it could start in a couple different ways. You could, like what we talked about, like scan data, right? So there's ways to kind of understand like Nielsen and Circana data, or maybe it's just like your depletion data that you have in general, where you can say like, hey, these are the top things that we're seeing out of that data set. And it could be, beer styles. Hey, IPAs are doing well in Tampa. Lagers are doing well. Well, what kind of lager? Well, Pilsner. Like getting down to that, but it's also looking at your own invoices and understanding like, hey, our amber is doing a lot better than our, tropical, fruited beer.
Gotcha.
Let's look into that. Why is that? And it's kind of making those decisions, but it's understanding that data first and where to go and why. I think the other part that's more on like the rep end is really understanding where they need to go and where they need to follow up. And a lot of us really started with like notebooks. Like we have like, just like a pen and a paper, but this only has so many pages in it.
Right.
When this fills up, it goes in the back of my car, and then I pull out and I live it. I do it, but then I pull out another one, and then now I'm walking into Bob's Bar for the third time and I forget the bartender's name because I don't have those things addressed. I don't remember what brands I sampled them. I don't remember some of these things. So that's really where like a Lilypad would come in, where we're saying things like, hey, go ahead and log those to the account level and understand what you've been doing on that account level. So when you walk in, you're walking in with this conversation already mapped out. Hey, last time I was here, I talked to Bob, and here's what Bob and I talked about, and here's what samples I left, and here's the opportunities we talked about. Great. Now that I can follow up, I have all these insights, and I can walk in. We even ingest depletion data. Hey, look at the sales too. Not only am I looking at what did I do last time, but I'm looking at the sales. And again, it's all
updated real time in the app.
Yeah, and you're not doing that with a notebook. And if you are, you're pulling up your computer in an Excel file and trying to understand that data. And again, I want my reps to like go out and conquer and not have to be slowed down by admin work or understanding data and stuff. Like more simplicity, the better. I want you calling on accounts, build relationships, go to the next one. Rinse and repeat the process until, we have everything mapped out and we're done and we're selling liquid as needed. So I think that's a big thing, but it's understanding the footprint, where to go and why. And then it's, again, like we just mentioned, like that follow up, because I'm building a relationship with you. Like if you're my retailer, I should know your first name. I should probably know your last name. I should know that your daughter plays soccer and that you love fishing. and that you're big into jacked up F-150s and whatever, insert the nuances, but I should know that. But now multiply that over 1,000 accounts that I could possibly call on in a footprint. I can't do that without technology. So I think that's a huge one for reps. It's just like a CRM, and not, again, I'm not just pushing Lilypad here, but they're not all created equal. There's plenty of CRMs out there, but there's some that are also tailored to the BevAlc space.
Which is what Lilypad is.
Exactly. And I think we really nailed that on the head. It's like, hey, what do reps wake up and have to do? And how can tech help their lives be better? And that's, again, logging the calls to the account level and understanding who we're talking about, what we're doing. And then, hey, what are the sales that touch this account? And how can we leverage that data? You know, hey, buyer, I see you're always buying, you know, this, that, and the other. In some states, you can get things called QDs, which are like quantity discounts. So I can make a deal with my wholesaler that says, hey, if an account buys 15 cases, we'll smack off $1 of each case. Gotcha. Well, at the end of the day, that helps the retailer say, cool, I can still keep it at a $10.99 4-pack, but I'm making an extra $1 off of it.
Gotcha.
Because I bought 10 or 15 cases or 25 cases. Now I'm getting $2 off. Now I can come up behind them and say, hey, look at this data. You buy a case here, a case there. Why don't you buy 10 cases? I'll build a display, like a sampling, to help make sure the product moves. Gotcha. I did that because I have technology in my hand that's helping me guide that conversation.
Gotcha.
And I'm not just blowing smoke out of my butt and then the buyer's disappointed that the product didn't move.
Gotcha. And one of the things you said before about like knowing the name of the person and whose daughter and he's into fishing and blah, blah, blah. Is there space in Lilypad to add that information? Like, is in like personal notes about maybe the individual, the owner of the beer bar? See, that's amazing. Yep. That seems like super intuitive and sort of, like you said, catered to the BevAlc space as far as what that does. And I just want to also, for anyone listening, Lilypad is it a globally available software, or is it North America?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, if we're not in a specific, country, just let us know. We'll get it approved in the app stores as needed. But we have clients in Australia. We've had people in China, the UK, France. I mean, again, Mexico, Canada too, US, right? Canada. We have a great slew of people that use us in Canada. And we even have some legacy clients that have been using us in Canada for over 6-7 years using Lilypad. So those are all great things. Yeah, all great things. But again, we're relationship builders. But I can't remember all those people I called on. I can't remember what I ate yesterday for dinner, much less remember that maybe you and your wife are getting a divorce. Like, probably something good to know when you're walking into an account. The guy might be a little on edge, or she might be a little on edge. Because these are things that are going on, but I can make that note and I can make sure that I'm, walking on eggshells if I need to. I had notes in there like, hey, this person's really big into memes. So every time I would text them, I'd send them like a meme about how, hazy IPAs are overplayed. Well, I got one in my portfolio. Hope you're having a good day. You're using stuff that like to kind of build off. Yep. Absolutely.
Now, is Lilypad both an app for the phone and like either a browser base or like an app for the computer too? That's all synced up.
Yeah, so we're in iOS and Android stores. Absolutely, because again, we want to make sure we're capturing the day in life of rep. Reps aren't on computers; they're literally walking in and out of accounts. So having this bad boy, shout out to my pup, having that bad boy just right in the palm of my hand, giving me all that information is huge. Where we had other people that are like, I had to buy my team hotspots. And I have to get them laptops. And, now we're talking about a bottom dollar that I'm investing in my reps versus everyone has a phone and that phone has service. So I think that's a huge, huge piece of it too.
That's amazing. So just to like maybe put it into a real life scenario, coming back to our first probably 5-10 minutes of the podcast, if I wake up in the morning and instead of being like, what the fuck do I do today? I pull up my phone and I pull up Lilypad.
Yeah.
Walk me through, like, maybe, remember the original question was a day in the life of a sales rep. Let's do a brief day in the life of a sales rep with Lilypad, for example. And once again, this is like, I feel like we do need to talk about it because I think that it's, once again, this whole podcast came about because we had worked with Lilypad as a, we hung out with the dudes at GABF in 2018, And we did the most viewed video on the channel with Lilypad. So for me, I feel a little like a pretty decent affinity for you guys, and I feel like it's dope. And I love that it's available worldwide in the 2 markets or the 3 markets that I particularly care about are Canada, US, and Australia. And it's available there. Breweries are using it, and it's making people's lives easier. So I think we should give it the reasonable shout out just to explain how it works, because it sounds like if I was a beer sales rep, it would make everything so much easier, so much easier. So like, walk me through like a day in the life of how Lilypad would make my day so much simpler, rather than like, I don't know what to do. Should I just go to this street or whatever? Like, how does that look
Yeah.
like?
And there always is going to be a little bit of that, where I always tell like reps, like, hey, know your footprint, like know where it's popping. But what's really cool about Lilypad is we can also integrate with depletion data. So not only can I just show you a list of
What's
accounts.
depletion data, just to be clear?
Yeah, so depletion data would be like the sale. So again, especially in like 3-tier,
how quickly it's going down in stock.
Well, it's the purchase of. So it's me getting a notice and an understanding
Purchased
that, hey,
by the customer.
Bob's Bar did bring in my brands and SKUs. And now that's prompting me as a rep to go in there and say, hey, thanks for the purchase. My name's Micah and I'm with
How can I help
BarrieHaus.
you?
How can we, let's raise brand awareness. Let's train the staff. Let's plan an event. Like, let's do all kinds of different things that we can do. But yeah, so we're taking, again, accounts, products, and depletions, which again is like the sale, the invoice.
The sale from the end consumer, from the person who purchased it from the brewery, whether it's a licensee, whether it's a liquor store or a bar or whatever.
And again, you could be a self-distributor, meaning you're already selling it, or it could be in 3-tier, where the wholesaler is actually sending us the data and we're ingesting it. But
I like the idea. I like the example. I think the one that would apply to more globally would probably be the independent self-distributed version, because I think in Canada, at least here, we don't really have that. And I don't think in Australia, I think it's kind of one-to-one as well. So maybe that example might be a little more like globally applicable.
Yeah, but it's at the end of the day, it all comes
distributor, warehouse, inventory, depletion. That's what he's talking about.
Yep.
So I excuse my 101 questions. I have no clue what this means, and I'm trying to figure out. I'm fascinated by all of this. I'm so sorry to keep cutting you off, Micah.
No. That's what we're here for, right? Yeah. It's the education of it all. But it's basically in the 3-tier model. Again, I sell my alcohol to a wholesaler, and wholesaler has to go put that in his store. But I'm left with a question mark over my head of like, okay, cool. Well, did they get it? Did they not get it? And what's really cool is Lilypad captures all that. So me as a rep, I can walk in and use Lilypad and say, hey, I spoke to Bob. Here's what I talked about, because there's all different kinds of forms and things I can fill out that my manager wants me to fill out. And it could be, hey, did you do a visit? Did you get a display built? Did you sample them? Did you do a staff training? All of that can be captured in Lilypad, which is fantastic. But it goes to another level when we start talk about like pre-planning. And again, it doesn't matter if you're a self-distributor or working in 3-tier as a distributor. We can integrate with that depletion data, so you can see in our accounts map, like go into our filter section and type in, hey, who's bought my beer over the last 60 days? Now that map will bring
up all of the different.
It will clean itself. Yep, on a map or list you pick.
Cool.
It will now show you, hey, here's all the people that have purchased. Okay. And you can get brand and SKU specific. So if you're saying, hey, who's purchased this core beer but hasn't purchased this seasonal, because that seasonal's out now, let's complement that shelf space and let's go in there and make sure we can get, hey, we already have one brand here, let's get another one here. We can show you that. And now that's helping you plan your day. That's helping you plan your route. Now I'm walking into an account going from, hey, do you have us? To, hey, I see you purchased, how can I support? And it's just a completely different flip script for the retailer, because now the retailer is looking at you like, hey, thanks for the support. Yeah, I brought you in. Right. Now, how can you help me move it?
And are they often like shocked because they don't expect that?
Yeah.
Because they don't even talk to you. They talk to the third. If you do the 3-tier, they're talking to the warehouse
to get the order. Person. But I may have walked in a month ago and said, hey, you going to bring it in? And then in my Lilypad, I'm writing down, hey, they're interested. They're going to get with the wholesaler next week and bring in the product.
Right. Then you check back in 3 to 4 weeks when it's there and it's been sitting, and maybe they got a bit of data.
But I know it's there because I got an invoice telling me, hey, we did actually get the fulfillment.
And you know how much is there.
Yep, correct.
And you know which SKUs are there.
Absolutely.
So they could have bought 4 SKUs and they're going to go 4 cases of each, and you're going to walk in and you'd be like, oh wow, you're already half sold. This is going pretty good. All right, let's see how we can ramp this up
Versus
a little
before, I'm just walking in blind. I'm walking in, and again, the theme is awkward. The theme is awkward.
bit. This
I
whole
walk in
episode.
so many times. I have to like walk in, and I'm like, "Oh, you have us on the shelf?" That's not a good look. I should know where the product is. Or I walk in and I say, "Hey, I talked to you a couple weeks ago, and you said you were bringing it in. You didn't. What's going on?" That level of accountability will make a retailer's head spin, because again, they have 20, 30, 40, 50 people walking into their store a week saying, "Hey, I have the best stuff, bring us in." But I'm walking in saying, "Hey, you told me 2 weeks ago you're bringing it in." I know you get 100 people asking for your shelf space. I get it. But I'm following up because in Lilypad, it shows me 2 weeks ago you gave me a verbal commitment, and that verbal has not been fulfilled. What's going on? And I'm holding you now accountable, and I'm a rep that you actually want to play with because I genuinely care about your business and I want you to sell the product and make money. Versus, again, me walking in and being like, "Hey, did you bring it in? Oh, you didn't? We'll get it next time." And I drove 30 minutes out of my way to not accomplish anything.
Gotcha. And how do they respond if you're like, "Hey, what's up? Like, what happened here?" Like, are they a little like, is that confronting, or is that kind of
It's
like,
awkward.
it's
It's
awkward?
really
Like,
awkward.
do
But
they
but but
make
it
shit up, or do
shows
they?
it shows that we care. It shows that we as reps are genuinely like, "Hey man, we're gonna call you out on your shit because you told us you were
You
gonna
said
bring
you're
us
gonna
in.
do it.
You didn't bring us in." And that's okay. That's totally fine. You're influenced by your wholesaler, you're influenced by the people that walk in. Retailers are influenced by a lot of different entities.
Right.
But I'm coming in as the actual sole representative of the brewery saying, "Hey, I understand that you didn't bring it in. Why? And how can I be a better rep to make sure you bring it in?" And even though it's
Mm,
not necessarily me being a better rep, it's them in the way they run their business, but it's almost showing that kind of like level of submission. Like, "Hey man, you're in control here, and I get that, but I'm the kind of rep that's going to follow up with you and call you out." And the response is, again, it makes their head spin. They're like, "How did you even know I didn't bring it in?" Well, because I
ah,
have tech. I have something like Lilypad that's showing me those things, and it's guiding me here. We like to think that Lilypad was made to be more proactive in their day-to-day outreach versus reactive, which is what majority of people see. I
hmm,
walked into accounts blind and I just reacted as I got information. Now I pull up an app and I'm like, "Here's where I need to go and why." And that just
interesting.
makes my flow so much better as a rep.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine. It equips you with all the information that you need to just get the answers that you want and less fucking around. And I feel
Yeah,
like any sort of
time is
sales
money.
rep, time is money, and anything that can remove friction and can remove guesswork uh, is worth it. And
Yep.
if that can sort of put you in that position, and even if you're a little like the way you're describing it, I wouldn't know if I'd call it like aggressive, but it's a little like, well, what's the word?
I remember. I remember. That's what I always like to tell people because
Mm.
I'm very ADHD and I live my life like one day at a time almost, kind of like Vin Diesel, like living your life a quarter mile at a time. You know, and my life is kind of like that. So now you want me to call on like 1,000 accounts and you want me to remember everyone's
Fucking
nuances.
joke.
You know, like
Quarter mile at a time. I forgot.
you
This
never
is the
turn your
worst.
back on family.
Family.
Yeah.
Family.
But that's
Oh
literally what it's
no.
there for, and it's there to
Fucking.
capture it all, and it's outside of a notepad, it's outside of an Excel sheet,
Mm,
and the full circle is, okay, great, reps get to go out there and kick ass and take names, but now managers get to better understand, hey, where do my reps need help? Where can I pull analytics from to understand the full process?
break that
They're
down.
going in and answering surveys. Hey,
Mm,
here's who I talk to, here's what I talk about, here's my next steps. Okay, hey, maybe there's a question in Lilypad said, what brands did you sample? Okay, great. Well, I'm noticing as a manager that, hey, we have a seasonal out and no one's sampling the seasonal and we're still sampling cores. Guys,
mm,
we have to do better at sampling our seasonals because right now this is all we're focused on. And I
right.
can make those decisions as a manager. So it becomes a full circle process. Manager can lay down the questions that they want answers to. Reps
In
get to
the
stay
app.
hyper. Yep. Reps get to stay hyper focused and really understand, like, hey, what does this organization want me to focus on and work on to leverage the sale? But then managers get to come in behind that and say, with simple analytics too, all of our reportings and like dashboards and widgets, so it's very comprehensible. Again, that's another thing. I don't want you to go pay an analyst $80,000 to $100,000 a year to make sense of the data. Like, just look at it, understand it, move on with your day.
Right.
And again, just help be the slickest and the best rep you can be, because it's an accountability thing. There's everyone selling liquid nowadays. Everyone is. And if you're not the best rep calling on those accounts, you probably aren't getting on the shelves, because that shelf space is so limited. And again, it's that relationship building. I genuinely loved every person I talked to, but I did not remember shit after leaving that account, because again, I have over 1,500 accounts I can call in on Tampa Bay alone, just Tampa alone. And I call on 200-300 of them maybe a month.
That's a lot.
That's not realistic. No one's going to remember that.
No.
So the tech is a rep side, but also a manager side and understanding the business.
And the manager can take those insights and guide the sales reps to be like, hey, we're missing this, we need this, why aren't you doing this? At least to sort of identify the gaps. Otherwise, the manager's flying blind.
It's identifying the gaps. Yeah.
Go.
It's identifying the gaps, but it's also giving the attaboys where they're needed. Like, hey, you're actually killing it. We're doing really good here. This is where we're seeing strengths and growth, because look how many displays built. You know, that's something you can build in Lilypad. Hey, where did we get displays? Now managers can go in and say, hey guys, great work this month. I see we got, 25 displays built, and majority of them have these brands and SKUs in them. That's fantastic, and that's why our numbers are up. Good job, attaboys, great stuff. It's never meant to be like Big Brother. It's always meant to just be like, hey, how can we be the most efficient in this space, but then also have accountability and understand, well, what the heck are we doing in that space? And this is why we're winning or losing. So I think that's the real big piece. It's organization and understanding for the rep to call in the account and make the best decisions possible. But then also for managers to come in and say like, hey man, I noticed these things in the reporting. How can I help you? Or, hey, you're killing it. Maybe you're up for a manager position and I need to put people under you. There's a lot of different ways that it can go, but the data and the understanding of it and the simplicity and what Lilypad does, I think is the best part.
So it helps not only the reps and not only the managers, but the company at large identify everything, every aspect, whether people who need promotion, people who need assistance and more support, accounts that need more support, or accounts that are pretty sweet and you can kind of let them cruise. Like it's the whole like macro view, macro and micro, it seems like. View. Like you can see the overview of everything, but you can also see the granular side as far as exactly what you need to do to keep on top. I could just like, after you really painted the picture of what a sales rep has to do, like it, once again, I was well aware of Lilypad 6+ years ago, but like hearing the actual day in the life in this crazy detail, and then you sort of comparing like the blind versus this, is sort of like, well, it's like using like the old school pre Google Maps or pre like nav, the what is it called, the TomTom joints, like the little GPS, and yet we had to use the book. I don't know, like I'm probably like, from what I can tell, I'm about 10 years older than you. We had to use like a map book, and you're like, okay.
Oh, I remember MapQuest. You print it out. Yeah.
No, before that, dude.
Oh,
in Australia, I'm from Melbourne. They had a book called Melways. If you're in Brisbane, it was called Brisways. And then I'd be like, what's your address? And you go in the back of the book, you find the address, you go page 35, J6. You're like, oh, okay. And then you got to
map. It's like a phone book for directions? Is that what you're describing here?
Like, when I was 18, my auntie gave it to me for Christmas, the book. And you keep the book in the back of the seat pocket behind the driver.
Where your CDs are?
Yes, exactly correct. And you would look at this book. This is before Mac. This wasn't internet. This was like the late 90s, early 2000s. And then you would find it in the book, and you'd have to like do that. And you have to kind of map the way. Okay, there, yeah. Like you have to figure it out.
Oh my God. No. And again, like people still live kind of nomad like that. Like people are still in Excel, and everyone has a starting point. Like I talk to people all day from all different countries, from all different aspects of, 3-tier, self-distro, whatever they're doing, direct to consumer. And it's just understanding like, hey, what are the pain points and how can we solve those pain points? If there's a time where we can't solve that pain point, no harm, no foul. Wish you the best, but We all have a starting point. Maybe we're new into the brewery space. Maybe we're a startup brewery. Well, you don't have a ton of funding to go get a bunch of tech. Now, not saying that our tech is expensive. It's really not. But everyone has a bottom dollar and everyone has a budget. And we all start somewhere. I've started on Excel. I've started with notepads. I've started with just whatever I could get my hands on. But you'll see the tech is so responsible and
Right.
it's so like understanding to the day in the life of a rep that it just makes it almost part of like it's a necessity. Like you have to have something like this moving into 2024 because how else are you going to be more accountable with these saturated markets? How are you going to compete with the 50 other reps that are walking into that one store? Now
Yeah.
times that by 1,000 plus stores, the tech is going to speak.
Yeah. No, you're so right. And like when you look at the competitors, like that's probably the best way to look at it. Like if you don't have it, and beer is an extraordinarily competitive market where, it's kind of like life and death at this particular point in the economy right now. And hopefully that'll pan out a little better in the near future. But if you aren't equipped with the tech to help you make the right decisions and not waste time and not waste resources and not waste energy and not waste money, you're kind of on the back foot a little bit. And
How
you're
long
going
does
to
it take you to get to a liquor store? To
be
drive to your local liquor store? How long do you think?
the one that I go to that I mentioned is 10 minutes.
10 minutes. Okay. Now, if they don't have something you like, where else do you go to?
Nowhere, because that particular spot is the only place that I know in the city that sells the hype haze that I want, because that was the one I told you about earlier. Now, if I
Absolutely.
wanted something else from there, if I wanted something else, I know of that, but it's the most reliable place, and I know kind of probably like I imagine you and Chris do as well. Like I make friends with a lot of people,
No.
so I'm like I know the owner, and I can text him, and I can check beforehand if he's got it. Now, if he doesn't have what I need, I don't know if there is anywhere nearby to get the same level of beer that I want. There's the LCBO that have a bunch of stuff. They don't have the shit that I want. They got some cool stuff. That's a liquor store that sells liquor, wine, and beer. The next one, there's a store that's not the brewery, Kitchener, hour away, maybe.
So that's my point. It's if I can go to my local place. So again, like I live somewhere, even though I'm a beer rep, I still have a home that I go to, and that's in a local market. And again, for me, it's like North Tampa, so we'll call it, like Land O'Lakes area. That's great. I can wake up and say, hey, yeah, there's 50 accounts near me.
Okay.
They're on and off premise, they're independent chain. There's all these places, but I also have to get in my car and drive into South Tampa, which could be 45 minutes to an hour away. That is company time. That is my time. That is time in general that I don't want to waste. So me driving 20, 30, 40, 50 minutes out of my way to not meet the buyer, that's
Not
detrimental
worth it.
to me and the business, because if I didn't meet the buyer, I'm probably not generating a sale. So that's
Gotcha.
another thing that Lilypad does. Like we have attributes. I can go in and say, hey, this account that I talked to wants me to visit them on Mondays between 9 and 11 a.m. I can now plug that into Lilypad and then go into my maps and say, hey, Lilypad, show me Monday accounts between 9 and 11. And poof, the map will update itself to say, hey, here's all the accounts that you flagged that need to be visited on Mondays between 9 and 11. And
And
I'm
you can
not guessing
kind of
anymore. I'm driving
right.
into the account. The buyer's clearly there because beer people come in on Monday, spirit people are on Tuesday, wholesalers Wednesday, merchandisers Thursday, Friday's admin day for them. Like it is
Serious?
super cookie cutter nowadays. So
Oh,
me driving out of my way to get time with somebody and I don't get that time, that's almost like a
that's that's money.
yeah, especially if it's not my first time. If it's your first time, those are just parts of the trade. Like if it's your first time walking in and someone's like, "Hey man, beer people coming on Monday and it's Thursday." Great, put it in Lilypad. Yep, they like to be seen on Mondays. Here's when. Great, I'll follow up with them next Monday. All good. But if I do that 3, 4, 5 times, that buyer's gonna be like, "You genuinely don't give a shit. You're not listening to me. This is not when you come in to sell me." Period.
Right.
10 years ago, I could just walk in and sample people. There was shelf space, there was enough beer to go around. Fantastic. That is not the climate today. Craft spirits is real. NA
Oh,
is real. Hard kombuchas, coffees. There's so many different craft variables that take time away from, me being a rep. So if I'm not there when I'm supposed to be, I'm probably not generating a sale, and that can almost be like a big oof if I'm not planting a seed with the right conditions.
That's genius, though, when you think of it like that. Like, it's not only saving time, well, time is money, particularly like you said. So it's saving time, it's saving money, and making sure you are where you need to be, and you can put that in. Does it give you like a route? Like, say, you know what I'm saying? So say if it's like it picks up 7 spots between Monday 9 and 11, and they're all over town. Does it give you an efficient boom, 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 boom?
Not necessarily, because again, we want to understand, one, where are you at on that map, and when do they want to see you?
Right.
So like we've seen other CRM softwares and other softwares that are like, yeah, we'll create a route for you, but that route is getting you based off of like, hey, you started here, so the next closest place is here. But just because it's the closest doesn't mean they want to see you. This person might not be. They might be an on-premise bar that opens at 4.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, you're close to me, but no one's there. So that's why the attributes exist. Because now I'm saying, show me Monday accounts between, again, 9 and 11 a.m.
And
Poof,
you can make
the
your
map
own
will
map.
get rid of 1,000 accounts and show you the 10 that you've made, or the 5 that fit that specific.
And then you just make your own sort of map.
And then you're just there. Yeah, you're like, hey, I'll start here and I'll work my way from 1, 2, 3.
Gotcha.
Yep,
okay.
Absolutely.
Because you don't really need them to make you a map, I guess. It's just sort of like it's right there. If it's very
And
obvious.
again, if it makes you a map, it's just based off of where your location is and how it gets you there fastest. And I don't want to get there fastest. I want to make sure I'm there when the buyer wants to see me.
Right. So once you probably use Waze or something to sort of get the quickest.
And that's in Lilypad. You can click get directions. It'll open up your native GPS, dump you into the parking lot. Easy peasy. Yep.
That's amazing.
And then now we go into the log and sales. And again, it's kind of like how we started this conversation. Like, look at the log. Know that last time you were here, you talked to Bob. Maybe you were in the account before me. I see that in Lilypad. So if we cross territory, if we're working in the same space, I actually get to see what you're doing, which means I don't have to pick up the phone and call you and say, hey, man, last time you were here, what'd you talk about with Bob? That's wasting my time and your time. It's on the app. I see that he sampled him on this, and this is what they talked about. That goes back to like me kind of saying, hey, wifey, we should go to this new restaurant. Oh, where'd you hear about this? I don't know. Well, I do know. They were a new client. I wanted to get the mozzarella sticks for free. And, but I can go into, imagine you're an owner or manager. Hey, I'm out with my wife. Hey, we're on tap here. And my rep was here last. Maybe I talked to the owner. Hey, how's Frankie been? Frankie's been great to y'all. Fantastic. I'm the owner. That's one of my guys. Love y'all. I don't have to call Frankie. I don't have to spend any other time out of my day. I can just look in Lilypad because all that information is going to live there for the life of the product.
Gotcha. So even if it's somebody else, like if it's maybe the manager and not the rep that's going to go in there and go and show face and want to go and shake some hands and schmooze a little bit, which is obviously quite valuable in any sort of sales environment, which is what we're talking about here. It empowers people to do that. Interesting.
It's all living there. Imagine a new hire. Like I just hired somebody new because someone moved on. Maybe I moved them up in the position. Maybe they went to another brewery. Whatever it is, fantastic. But there's a knowledge that leaves with that person. And that's also scary because especially the smaller the brewery you are, the more important that knowledge is. Now it all just lives in Lilypad. So that new employee that may come in is going to see, hey, these colors on this map equal, we've recently visited them, or we haven't visited them in 30 days, or they have a sale and we need to visit them. But all that information is going to live in the app so they can just look at it and be like, oh yeah, Bob was here last and here's what they talked about and here's what they sampled. And me as a new rep can follow up right where Bob left off. Now, I have to build a relationship still. And that's where like hiring the right person with the right personality and those things really shines. But overall, it's just like, dude, we can pick up where we left off. Yep.
I love it. This is really cool to get the understanding of like the nuances of how this can work.
Yep.
It's
absolutely.
I find it fascinating. So so obviously Lilypad clearly is like an important tool and arguably essential tool for any sort of sales team, no matter where in the world you are. Is there any other sort of major tools that other sales reps or sales reps in general should have or could look at? Obviously the CRM side, like Lilypad takes care of all of that. Is there anything else to wrap up the tech side of things that people should have?
I think one thing I think that's like really near and dear is more of the self-distro side. I
Okay.
really feel for our self-distributors because it feels like they have like 10 products that have to do 10 parts of their business, whether it's
Mm,
like ordering, operations, CRM, like point of sale, taproom sales, like they're all going through all these different, softwares and things.
it's a
So I
lot.
think I think that's one thing that is almost a disservice, is like there's no one lump sum of product that's saying like, hey, we can solve all these things. It's
Gotcha.
I got to have like 10 different things to solve 10 different parts of my business. And that can be frustrating. And do they all talk? No, they don't all talk. All right, crap. Like now I have to do a lot of admin work to make sense of that data and to guide the team and do those things. So I think that's one thing that we're seeing a lot in alcohol, is like everyone's creating a product that fits one part of the business, but there's 10 parts that all accumulate that business.
Gotcha.
So I think that's like a tricky kind of nuance part of thing. But otherwise, I think in our bev alc space, like a lot of people already know who the players are.
Right.
Um, and I honestly, I love competition. So I hope that there's new players out there that understand some of the pitfalls and help kind of bring that in. But us at Lilypad, we're always looking for like those partnerships and those collaborations, because at the end of the day, like we want to make sure that Lilypad is able to integrate with the depletion data from wholesalers or from self distributors. But we know that data is being stored by other tech companies. And so the ability to like play and be nice with each other and say like, hey, we just want to see the whole industry succeed, and we're not worried about the politics of things, like that's where I really want to see things get to. Because
Okay.
I think there's enough tech to go around, but I don't think all the tech's talking to each other, and it's doing a massive disservice to everyone in the
Mm,
industry. Um, and I don't think that's okay.
no, I agree. So then does excuse my ignorance if you sort of just maybe said this, but does Lilypad work with other different types of alcohol? So spirits, cider,
Absolutely.
wine. So regardless of the type of business, you could use that. But then I guess overall the different industries would have different sort of tech, and maybe they're not all talking, and then it becomes a little less cohesive. That is really what you're
Correct.
saying. Gotcha.
And now I'm looking at like operations over here, but then I'm trying to understand what sales is doing related to operations, but then what's marketing doing? What are those campaigns
Mm,
doing? How many followers are we getting from that? And what online sales did we get from that? And like again, nothing's talking to each other. It's all siloed. And
got-
that's one thing
gotcha,
that I
gotcha,
would
gotcha.
really like to see change is, hey, how can we all kind of just like
Bring it all
rally
into
together
one
and bring it
place.
all in? Yes, I know you exist and I know we exist, but how can we all coexist to give the best experience to the end user, which is these breweries, which we've seen uh, the markets have changed with all the different brands and SKUs that are out there and all the different types of alcohol that people can drink.
Mm, I wonder, like, I mean, what's the answer? Is it more just like there has to be a bunch of independent companies that link up, that maybe that fill the gaps? Like Lilypad's got their thing, and there's maybe two, three other companies that cover the other areas, and then you have to make it compatible somehow, or like how does that look?
It's just having
Mm,
the hard conversations. It's taking a share of the target
with who?
market, or the TAM as we would call it, and
Okay.
saying, hey, here's the addressable market that we can go after. These people have this much, this person has this much. And again, like I understand, we all here to make money, but I'm definitely one of those people that's like, I just want a solution so people can wake up every day and enjoy brewing the beer, and then someone can enjoy selling the beer, and then someone can enjoy moving the beer in a tap house and being a bartender or a waitress or whatever it is. Like it just doesn't need to be as political as it is in our space. But we do, that's a good thing about Lilypad, is we do already kind of talk to a lot of these different companies. We do already
Mm,
integrate with certain sources of depletion data coming from other people. You can call them our competitors. I call them our friends, but we still want to have that partnership, and we do with majority of the leaders in the space. We do have some sort of a
dope.
partnership in ingesting data and doing those things. um,
Mm,
but it starts from the top down. It's really cool. I go to a lot of like events and festivals and conferences, and you talk to kind of the people at the bottom or even in the middle, and we're all kind of saying the same thing. But it's almost like the higher up you go, again, protecting the business.
Yeah.
And I get it. There's two sides, but I'm
might
a
miss some
believer.
nuance.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not in those closed conversations. I'm not in those boardroom meetings. I understand there's dollar figures to be made and businesses to run and people to hire and all that. But at the end of the day, like, there's people that are starting this business with their life on the line. Their house is on the line. And how can we help them, succeed so that house doesn't go under and they don't have to move or, sell the car or, insert being an entrepreneur. How can we just kind of unify it and bring it all together? And I think I'd happily say, 50-60% of this community is getting to be more collaborative. I think more point of sales, talking to other people. I think, again, ingestion of data and like 3-tier systems or sharing more data with the likes of Lilypad and other CRMs. It's a beautiful thing, but I really feel like there could be a lot more effort to be done to really unify the space and just make it the best that we can all be.
I love that. I love that message. So then to bring it all home on based on what you're saying there, if there was like, obviously what you're saying is sort of more of like that, what we just said, then like a bit of a higher level thing that's kind of speaking to maybe like ownership and things like that, and maybe the creators of tech that can come together. But say, to bring it back to the core of this particular episode, like if you had any advice as someone who has worked in beer sales and now you're on the tech side, if you had any advice to either someone who is aspiring to be a beer sales rep or just maybe thinking about it or currently is a beer sales rep, is there anything that you would like just want to leave them with to be like, think about this, or, is there anything that maybe that's the most important thing or two or three that you learned over your time?
I think the one thing is, especially as someone that is already a beer rep, so speaking to someone that's already selling, already in the market, I think it's empathy. Empathy. And I think that's what's like a human thing. Like, I think we should all understand, like, people are going to have bad days. I have bad days. Everyone has bad days. But I have bad days because there's certain things going on in my life that have nothing to do with you. And you get that a lot when you're just walking into someone's store and you're asking for their time and their money, because really at the end of the day you're asking them, hey, write a check and bring in my product and my brands and SKUs. Now, again, like I've said throughout this whole podcast, like, I'm here to sponsor that, right? Like, you bring in our product, I'm here to do a sampling, to do a staff training, do the things we need to do to generate the money. But at the same time, like, that is someone's business and they're writing a check with their pretty much their investment money or their personal money to build that business and create consumers and make them happy. So I would always say, like, walk in and say, you know what, someone's treating you badly, doesn't mean it's right by any means, but it's being the bigger person and just kind of understanding and taking a step back and saying, like, well, there must be something going on in this person's life. Some people are just assholes, but they're not assholes for no reason. Like, there's probably some turmoil or something that's gone on. And again, it doesn't make it right. I'm not saying it's right by any means. You can easily say, hey, you're an asshole and I don't want to sell to that account. Fine. That's your prerogative. You can do that. But I think it's empathy. It's empathy and understanding, because, again, these are just people that you're talking to every day that live lives just like you. They're running a business. Again, a lot of the time their house is tied to that business or other things. So we have to have some empathy there. The piece for someone that's like new coming into the industry, I learned this the hard way, being someone that went from a brewery that was selling in 12-ounce cans and moved to 16-ounce cans. Alcohol will catch you. It is not a joke, and kind of like what we were mentioning when we were on like a pause mode of, like, there is a science to understanding the alcohol to water consumption. I do all kinds of festivals. I do, again, all kinds of events, and people always, like, even my wife will be like, yeah, he's going to Vegas for this event. And it's like, yeah, I am, but I have to be on for 12-14 hours and I have to be on while drinking. So you have to have this balance. So I would say, if anyone new getting into it, it would be, don't think you have to come in with this high tolerance. You need to understand that water and beer are cohesive, and you can really balance your day in the life of, because you may go sample some places here and there, but you're driving to these accounts. So you have to be very responsible with, hey, it's a sip here, and not, hey, let me kill this 16-ounce can, then drive to my next account, then kill another. So there's like, it's fun and it's great, but it's alcohol, and alcohol changes us as we drink it. So it's being cognizant of that. That was something that was a big eye opener for me. I was definitely a beer connoisseur when I got into alcohol, and I felt like I was like this high tolerant kind of guy. But when you're sitting at an account, kind of like at the end of the day, like, 2 more waters, please. It's not the best look, and we all learn. We all have our moments. But goddamn, some of those IPAs will creep on you throughout a whole work day.
Yeah.
And you have to balance that working in alcohol and being a professional, and just maintaining that level of professionalism that's required in the day to day. So those are kind of the main things that I would say. I'd say if you're already established in the beer space and you're selling, empathy. Man, these people are living a life that you may never understand as an entrepreneur, because someone is paying you every day to do the job. Versus, hey, you're new, alcohol will sneak up. It's very sneaky. You may wind up at a nudist colony sampling beer, and you may not leave. Yeah, you might not leave before sundown. Yeah, you cannot stay after nightfall.
You cannot.
But I think that's a great way to.
We cut this on air so you can tell me this damn story.
Yeah. No, that's a great way to end it. But yeah, man, I really appreciate everything you're doing. Again, a million thanks for just being a voice in this industry. We need more voices. We need more people talking about these things and understanding, like, the business of beer. And I think that's the theme, is like, the business of beer is real, and it's something that's still in its infancy. Cars have been around for a while, food's been around, snacks have been around, like a lot of verticals have been around for a while, but beer, and especially alcohol in general, with all these RTDs, and again, just like craft spirits and even craft wine, like there's tons of wineries, but they didn't necessarily distribute like they do today. Or now it's in a can, or now it's in a bottle, like there's just so many different aspects going on. So I think it's just like staying up with those trends and just understanding that footprint, and go out there and sell. Go out there and have fun and sell. And it's a great industry, and you'll meet the most incredible people ever. But drink water. Drink water, dude.
Drink beer, but drink water. God
mostly water.
Drink water.
Mostly water.
Beer is mostly water, but also have water. A lot of
Please have water.
Please have water. Look, honestly, bro, I couldn't be more grateful to both you and Chris for like
Jamie.
We had multiple comments. Big up Jamie, Chris, who's like once again way past his bedtime, but like I truly appreciate you both. It was really cool because we got in touch before we even started this series, and I wanted to make sure we had this rolling before we did this, and I'm really glad that I got this going so that we could do this properly. And I want to thank you both, man. Just like, this was such a phenomenal look. It went like 3.5 hours.
Jeez, I didn't even realize.
But it flew by. And I just feel like you dropped so many gems, dude. And that, compare with Chris as well, saying, on the side, keeping this going. He said 10 out of 10 experience definitely flew by. I love that. And I feel exactly that. Like, I just feel like I feel very appreciative of the effort that you went to select these beers of phenomenal stuff in Tampa that we could drink and talk about the Tampa scene on within the scope of the context of what we want to talk about, and just delivering your insights and experience of this. I think it's like super valuable, and I don't know, for me, this is what I wanted to hear about. And like, I kind of got really amped, particularly at the beginning, because I was like, I was already excited for this podcast, but I was like, there was so many things I had more questions about than I even realized as you were bringing stuff up. And I just really appreciate your candor and your honesty and the way you approach it, man. So thank you so much for just dropping these gems on people. And if anyone is ever considering being a craft beer sales rep, I feel like this is like the ultimate episode for people to listen to. Like, this is 3.5 hours of gems about the whole, every side of it, good, the bad, the ugly, the nude. And
the nude.
how the nude, And what people could expect from doing it, whether you're in Canada, America, Australia, Europe, it doesn't matter. It's basically the same shit that what you're talking about with a few little nuances, right? So I appreciate you. Once again, Lilypad has a real soft spot for me because it was one of our first sponsors in 2018, and it's for me feels like such a great full circle moment to bring it back, and it's just such a phenomenal product. Once again, this wasn't even just about Lilypad. You guys were from Lilypad, obviously, and we're talking about the craft beer sales reps, but the tech is very much worth spending the time that we spent talking about it because it is phenomenal. You do have clients all over the world. You do make a genuine impact in the businesses of craft breweries everywhere. So just thank you for your honesty and just laying it all out there, man. I've truly enjoyed this. As all three of us said, this flew by, and
it gets awkward.
I didn't think it got awkward for a second, but I think being a
this is the one instance where it didn't get awkward.
Well,
no,
I didn't tell you this is a nudist podcast, so
well, good thing I'm not wearing pants.
Yeah, nothing wrong. I fucking love it. Honestly, bro, this is phenomenal. Where can everybody find either yourself or Chris if you want to be found, or Lilypad online? Where would you want to point?
Oh my God, we just changed our website. Fintech.com/Lilypad
CRM.
CRM. We were a startup that was acquired, so we did have our own lilypad.co. I think it'll still redirect you to that, but it is fintech.com. Yeah, I believe so. It should still reroute you to then fintech.
It does.
Okay,
exactly
perfect. So lilypad.co.
How quick was Chris on that? You barely said it before he had it up on the screen.
He's my lifeblood. Like I can't. He's going to my next event with me. We'll be in Baltimore at ADI for the Craft Spirits Conference, and I like hit him up like, when do I need to be at the airport? Like he's my Jamie. He's my everything.
I love it. He's my
Jamie.
Chris and Jamie. I don't think you should call him Chris. Chris, your name's changed now. It's Jamie. Jamie Vernon, Chris.
But yeah, fintech.com /Lilypad-CRM. But you can find us on the cell. Yep, you can find us on socials, all kinds of good stuff there. So.
What's the social? Do you know?
I think it's all part of fintech, so just would be fintech.
I can actually probably check in. I bet Chris will beat me to it because you can see the thing. If I go, say, Instagram is fintech bev alk.
There you go.
Is probably the main one there. That's on Instagram anyway. So guys, make sure you check that out. If you are I think it's a LinkedIn as well.
Yeah, it's my LinkedIn. You can hit me up, Micah Overton
on LinkedIn.
Yep, message me.
Send without a note. I don't need to tell you who I fuck am.
Carrier pigeon. I don't care. Let's talk.
Anything, yeah. But yeah, honestly, if you're a craft brewery anywhere in the world, definitely check out Lilypad just to see, what it could possibly do for you and your team, even if you're a single person sales team, because I know there's a bunch of breweries out here that are single person sales teams. I absolutely know those people. And I feel like after today, there's a lot of things that Lilypad could make your life a lot easier for at a super reasonable price. So that is amazing. So definitely go check that out. Micah, Chris, boys, thank you so much for everything. Your input has been phenomenal. I love this season. This is only episode 4 of the Business of Beer, and I feel like it's like some of the best shit we've done. It's so fun. It's so interesting. It's like I feel like it's more value than anything else. So thank you guys very much. Stick around. I'll wrap this up. We'll chat after. But
thank you, man. Shout out to you. Hey, give yourself it's you being the voice and the advocate. That you're an unsung hero. So thank you for making the content. Not just for myself, but again, you're like 400 or 500 episodes into this stuff. Like we need more voices helping get this out. So a million kudos to you and your team. So thank you.
Appreciate you, brother. Thank you so much, man. This is a genuine pleasure. And this is gonna be the first of many things that we'll all do together, on the pod. I feel like there's just so many gems. And Lager Gang, Halfway Crook, shout out to you in Atlanta. Wonderful spot. Guys, thank you so much for watching and listening. If you enjoyed the episode, smash the thumbs up, hit subscribe below, hit that notification bell so you know when the new drops. Follow us everywhere at BAOS Podcast. So check out the long form audio so you can hear attractive, intelligent motherfuckers like Micah talk about craft beer every week. Give us some 5 stars just for Micah's hat alone and his t-shirt, which is also my t-shirt. And there you go. Look at that. Look at the drip. Look at the drip. The drip is A1, y'all. Sell more craft beer, and we'll see y'all in the next one. Peace, y'all.